Mr. Mercado here. Mr. Dawson.
Present.
Ms. Downs. Mr. Caderas. Mr. Kurtz.
Here.
Mr. Natale.
Here.
Mr. Strollo. Mr. Tedisco.
Here.
Mrs. Blake. Mr. Hilsinger. Mr. Selmont.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Will Commission Public please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business tonight is continuation of special permit for Lisa Calhoun, applicant Sherwood Dawson, owner. Can we hear the call for that, please?
One, application for special permit on behalf of Lisa Calhoun, applicant. Sherwin Dawson, owner. Applicant is requesting special permit pursuant to section 30.41 of the Cheshire zoning regulations for an ice cream parlor for the property located at 500 South Main Street, assessor map 71, lot 88.
Thank you. And representing the applicant?
Lisa Calhoun, 40
And-
Corliss Lane, Cheshire,
Chairman.
Connecticut.
For the record, Mr. Dawson has recused himself. Mr. Bowman?
I will be recusing myself, and I hope that Mayor Slocum has learned that, and he should have known better, being on P and Z himself, not to speak to an elected official during a public hearing. So I will be recusing myself. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we need all three alternates if you guys want to come up. Okay, the floor is yours.
I will be very brief. I don't really have very much else to say on this matter, but I do want to say that this process has been very eye-opening for me.
Can you just grab the mic, pull it a little
Sorry.
closer to?
This process has been very eye-opening for me. It's definitely given me an appreciation for what you do on the Planning and Zoning Committee. I feel that the decisions that you make really help to keep Cheshire the wonderful place that it is to live. So I thank you for your service to our town. I thank you for the careful consideration that I've seen you give each issue that comes before you, and I especially thank you for your integrity. Obviously, I feel that an ice cream parlor would be a great addition to the south side of town, especially since the one that we had has relocated. Judging by the amount of time that they were in that spot, I think that there's a majority of people that would welcome a new ice cream parlor in this area. Not only does it have the potential for longevity, but it could create jobs, and it would bring visitors to the park. That's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This was left open last hearing to get a question from the property owner about the fence. Do we have any resolution on that?
Yes, I spoke to the property owner, and he is not in favor of putting a fence across the parking lot.
Not in favor, so he will not.
He will not.
He will not do it.
He will not agree to that.
Okay. Before I go to the public, commission members have any questions or comments they want to make? No. Public, come on up. I just need your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Al Criscolo, 56.
Just tip it up a little bit
Yeah.
for you, a little
My name-
taller.
My name is Al Criscolo. I live at 56 Chipman Drive. I'm here to speak in opposition to this petition, to this permit request. And I say that on several points, which I'll be brief, but my concerns have to do with safety, in particular traffic congestion. We've lived at Chipman Drive since 1977. There's a number of us, my wife and I included, who have had some near misses, trying to either exit Chipman or to enter Chipman. Generally, that's because of congestion, traffic, and that varying during the course of the day. That could be morning traffic, rush hour, noontime, school dismissal, 2 p.m., and then at the end of the day. Anyone who does not live on Chipman would not be aware of that. But I can tell you that is a problem. And that is simply because of the traffic that can jam up. People will be in a rush to enter Chipman or to exit. And particularly if you're trying to travel south, that's at best. Having 3 commercial properties, the Dawson property, Cheshire Dental Associates, Brukisa, which is now for lease or for sale, that is only added to this congestion. Now it's manageable, it's livable, but since COVID has come along, parents have also been parking on Chipman Drive. Chipman Drive is posted no parking, by the way, during school hours. Parents park there, and in an effort to avoid them, I can tell you on occasion, on 2 or 3 occasions in the last year, I've had some near misses. Unfortunately, I'm still agile enough to maneuver the car out of the way to avoid traffic trying to enter into Chipman Drive, usually to get into one of the 3 commercial properties. I don't have any problem with commercial properties, but I think that this request to add an ice cream parlor, which means a permanent change to the language within the zone permit, that opens the door, I think, to just about any of those 3 properties that currently exist, including 2 residential properties, which for all I know, they will remain residential, but with a 2A zone, which used to be an office, home office type of a situation, which accommodates the current, conditions, we're going to add food. We're going to add more traffic. And what's to stop the other 4 properties currently zoned as 2A from perhaps adding a coffee or a bakery shop? I think this opens the door long-term to just about any number of properties listed 2A that might be on Lanyon Drive, Patton Drive, any lane that exits or enters onto Route 10. This could create a long-term problem. So I think there's a consequence here that I hope the council will take account of. So that's my first and primary concern is simply safety. Chipman Drive, I measured it, is 25 feet 8 inches wide. If you park cars on either side of the street, you'll find that 25 feet 8 inch reduces dramatically. So it'd be very difficult for any vehicular traffic up and down the street, let alone a safety vehicle, a police car. Now, I'm not trying to say that an ice cream parlor in and of itself is going to create this. It's going to add to an already very, very difficult condition. Any change that's going to increase commercial traffic is a problem. I heard a reference to, I missed the last meeting, something about a barrier or a fence being erected between Dental Associates and the Dawson property. I can tell you that people use that dual parking lot to drive in and out of, to access Chipman, to exit Chipman. I think if you add a food service company, what is that going to do to that very same traffic? There are a lot of young families, on Chipman. They walk their children to school. They're walking to park events. So again, I ask you to consider the public safety aspect of making this change. I think there are other issues to consider. Being a long-term resident, I do believe that it can have a negative impact on the value of our properties. Chipman Drive is a modest street, single-family homes. It's a dead end. It's quiet. It's extremely quiet. I think the more it's commercialized, at least on that frontal portion of it, that can only have a negative effect. I know that 2 families in particular, the Biddiscombs, the LaRosos, who live there, the Biddiscombs are right directly behind these 3 commercial buildings. I can't imagine what it would be like during a concert event when foot traffic begins to, everyone wants to come over and have an ice cream cone. Sure. And people also like to sit, there's places to sit on the barriers there right along the Bartland property. How much foot traffic is there going to be? How much litter is there going to be? These are secondary issues, but I do believe they need to be considered because I do believe that will impact the economic value of the remainder of our properties. I'll sum it up as best I can. It seems to me interesting, Ms. Calhoun spoke about the benefit to the community. Bartland Park is a tremendous benefit. Our parks are a tremendous benefit. Our high school, all of these school activities. Cheshire is a very family-friendly town. I think Cheshire was rated in the top 100 Money Magazine best communities to live in. I don't believe an ice cream parlor is going to add to the community sense that already exists in this town and has existed for many, many years. I believe that, and I guess in any decision you make, there are those who benefit and those who don't. I think the public good, the public benefit, ought to prevail. Certainly, there are two people who could benefit from this, the property owner and the applicant. There's a business interest here, and they can certainly benefit from that. I don't know how much revenue that the town is going to generate from these businesses, but I think the rest of us who live adjoining this property will be the ones that lose for all of the reasons that I have just listed. The only other point I can think of, and I don't know this for a fact, but I do know that the Dawson property abuts the Bartland property. There isn't any separation to speak of between those properties. And I'm not familiar with regulations about parking. Does any of that Dawson property encroach on in any way Bartland Field? Does there need to be a setback to allow for any parking that might ensue? That's a question. I don't know that, but it's something to consider. I think you can see everything I'm saying is this can simply add to the congestion that already exists, and no one in this town can appreciate it unless they live here. They live on Chipman. As I said, we've been here since 1977. Some of our neighbors have been here over 30 years. We've seen it. Our children have walked to school. It's a difficult place to be. So I ask you to consider that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Jim Doheny, live at 86 Chipman Drive for 40 years. I also wanted to commend the council for their integrity in handling the situation. I think it's flat out embarrassing, actually. But to get at the topic at hand, I'm just going to agree with Al. I spoke my piece last time. There's no reason to rehash this stuff over and over again. I think you guys understand the opinion and the sides and the value to both parties. Just didn't want one person to come up and speak and one person to speak for and one to speak against. I think you're going to do what you're going to do, I think, for the right reasons, and I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? This is for the ice cream.
Trevon Zombak.
Dr. Neil Zombak, is this the ice cream as far as the zoning permit or which?
This is the actual shop.
The actual
We closed
shop,
the
okay.
public hearing for the zoning. It's the text change.
Okay, so basically, I just want to say that, like, right now, it's like, let's commoditize the park and the gazebo with an ice cream parlor. But in order to do that, you need a zone text change and a permit. And right now, the zone is an R28 zone. It's got an established professional businesses there. And also it abuts an established neighborhood. And of all the businesses that could be approved to go into an R28 zone, none of them are with food. There must be a reason for that. You could have had a dog grooming business there, a hairdressing business there, an exercise training business there. And all of these businesses are scheduled by scheduled appointments. Unlike an ice cream parlor in which the customers can fluctuate and increase in the number quickly. Those of us who oppose are concerned with traffic congestion and safety of the pedestrian. You've got high school students across the street that lose their mind and will run across the street potentially for ice cream. Loitering, patrons are around until 9 p.m. in a residential zone. And my business, near my business, littering and trash and a dumpster. And as we know, as the weather gets warmer and the food, it'll attract rodents. The town of Cheshire had a plan of conservation and development of 2016. And it published a survey, a community identity survey. It's on page 88 of 93. And it says, what would you change to improve the quality of life in Cheshire? Reduce traffic on Route 10. What are important issues that you have of Cheshire? Traffic. Let the concession stand in the park and the businesses of ice cream trucks handle the business of ice cream. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, commission members, last time, anything? Okay, and it closes public hearing. Thank you. I don't have my gavel tonight for some reason. Okay, so we are going to take 1, 2, and 3 all together. Can we hear the call for that, please?
1, petition for a zone text amendment in behalf.
It's too late now.
Sorry. Petition for a zone text amendment on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated. Applicants, Andrea Gomes, Esquire, agent applicants, and requesting new section 44B Housing Opportunity District, HOD, to be added to the Cheshire zoning regulations pursuant to General Statute Section 8-30G. 2, petition for a zone change on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated. Applicants, Andrea Gomes, Esquire. Agent, applicants are requesting to place the subject property, 146 Realty Drive, in the HOD pursuant to General Statute Section 8-30G, property located at 146 Realty Drive, Assessors Map 28, Lot 146. 3, applicant for site plan approval on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated. Applicants, Andrea Gomes, Esquire, agent. Applicants are requesting a site plan approval per General Statute Section 8-30G for a multifamily community for the property located at 146 Realty Drive, Assessors Map 28, Lot 146.
Thank you. And representing the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen in Hartford, here tonight on behalf of the applicants. With me tonight, we have quite the team. We have Josh Levy, Executive Vice President of Vessel, Michael Lloyd, Managing Director of Site Acquisitions for Vessel, my colleague, Attorney Scott McNeil, Seamus Moran, our engineer with H&H Engineering Associates, Thomas Graceffa, our landscape architect with Thomas Graceffa Landscape Architect LLC, and Mark Vertucci, our traffic engineer with Fuss and O'Neill. Before we dive into the substance of our presentation tonight, I did want to address a few procedural housekeeping matters for the record and for the Commission's information. First, the Commission should have before it our March 9th application package, which consisted of a tabbed application package, the civil plans, as well as a separately bound package regarding affordable housing need in Cheshire and the surrounding region, which I'll come to later. The Commission should also have April 19th supplemental materials that we submitted into the record, which responded to all of the staff comments issued to date and revised the plans accordingly. But we will, of course, go through those tonight. Public notice was completed appropriately for tonight's public hearing, including the required mailing and the newspaper publication. And then, of course, the proposed regulation and rezoning was filed with the town clerk at least 10 days in advance of tonight's hearing, as required by state statute. A big thank you to Mr. Glidden and his team for taking care of that and the newspaper publication. Just to preview, Mr. Chairman, what we're proposing for tonight is I'm going to kick it off, obviously, and then we'll hand it off to the rest of my team to go through some of the application details in their respective areas of expertise. I'll then bookend the presentation with closing comments. We've really tried to put together an efficient and comprehensive application for the Commission because there was a lot to go through here. So we would just respectfully request that the Commission hold its questions until the end. If we're doing it right, we'll hopefully address a lot of them throughout the presentation preemptively. So with that, I will dive right into the substance of the application. We are obviously here tonight about the subject property, which is about 1.3 acres and located on the northeast corner of the Realty Drive, Highland Avenue, Route 10 intersection. It's marked here on the screen with a star. And I forgot to mention, I did hand out hard copies of the presentation as well. The site is located in the I-1 zoning district, which does permit certain residential uses. And there are a number of other uses in the vicinity as well, including Egidio Lennon Wealth Management to the east. We have Highland Bowl and Fellowship of Life Church to the west, and then Physique Plus Fitness Center to the north. There are no wetlands on site. There are no water courses on site. We're not within an aquifer protection area or any watershed. And as the commission can see from this aerial, the site is currently unimproved, mostly wooded. And the commission can see that even better here with these street views, courtesy of Google Street View, from Realty Drive on the left-hand side of the screen, and then from Highland Avenue on the right. So we are here tonight because the applicants are proposing the construction of a multifamily community consisting of 70 rental apartments in one building. Of those, there will be 66 one-bedroom units at 525 square feet apiece, and there will be 4 two-bedroom units at 750 square feet apiece. Now, I'm not here to, of course, steal Seamus, our engineer's thunder, but I'll note for now that the site improvements that you'll hear about in a little bit include all the bells and whistles, including, just to name a few, enhanced stormwater drainage and complementary landscaping. Importantly here, we do have in the record confirmation from the Cheshire Water Pollution Control Authority, the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority, and Eversource that their respective utilities, so sewer, water, and electricity, are all available for the community. And those letters are at tabs 11 and 12 of our March 9th package. Now, this application is a little bit different than what the commission likely sees on a month-to-month basis in that it has been filed under Connecticut General Statutes 830G, which is Connecticut's Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act. And we have filed it as what's called a set-aside development, which means that 30% of the units, so here 21 of the 70 units, will be formally rent restricted for a period of 40 years. 830G provides that if a proposed residential community preserves 30% of its units for 40 years for households, and in this instance, it'll be households earning about $45,000 to $72,000 annually, then the commission can only deny the application if it receives evidence at the hearing that the development plan will cause a substantial public health or safety concern that clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing and that cannot be addressed by reasonable changes to the plan. So as the commission can see, its review standard for an 830G application is quite different from what it normally is, and it's very narrow. So what we've done here for this application is what we've done in myriad other municipalities, and we've filed one application with 3 parts. We've proposed a zoning regulation amendment to add the Housing Opportunity District, or the HOD, to the zoning regulations to govern the proposed use. We've proposed a rezoning of this site to the HOD, and then, of course, a site plan approval for the site plan that the commission has before it here. A quick word about the proposed regulation amendment, since it is a slightly unusual procedure, this 3-part application. We've entitled the regulation the Housing Opportunity Zone. As I said, the text is at tab 4 of our March 9th package. And the format and the content of the regulation was modeled off of Cheshire's existing zoning regulations. We started with the zoning regulations and then worked from there, in particular focusing on section 44A, the Omnibus Affordable Housing Regulation. Our proposed regulation is intended to define with precision what can and cannot be built in the HOD and how it can be built. It allows, of course, our proposed use, multifamily residential, compliant with 830G by site plan and not special permit, as special permits, as the commission knows, are discretionary and contrary to the purpose of 830G. So we've included provisions in the regulation regarding the applicability of the zone, meaning what land can and cannot be rezoned to the HOD, Here, we've tailored that narrowly, so it's lots between 1 to 3 acres with frontage on Realty Drive, so we're really focusing on this site. We've also included dimensional standards specific to the HOD, maximum density, maximum height, and of course, our plan complies with the proposed HOD regulation. Where possible, we've made references in the HOD to existing provisions in the regulations. The commission will note our signage provisions and our stormwater provisions just refer to other sections of the zoning regulations. So we've really tried to incorporate the HOD into Cheshire's existing zoning regulation scheme. We've also included minimum standards for the affordability of an HOD development, including that the applicant submit an affordability plan with its application that complies with state law. And that plan will actually set forth the administrative rules or the rules for administering the affordability of the proposed community once constructed. Our draft plan, again, compliant with state law, is at tab 6 of the March package. Now, the site-specific regulation, the reason we've done this is because this development requires a combination of use and dimensional rules as well as affordability requirements that wasn't otherwise contemplated or is not currently existing in Cheshire's zoning regulation. And the question I know that's probably on everyone's mind is this spot zoning? And Connecticut case law is very clear that this is not spot zoning. This is permissible, and it's actually permissible in the 830G context to not comply with the underlying zoning, meaning that we could have come forth and just filed the site plan with these dimensions regardless of the underlying zone dimensions. But what we find to be the better practice in most cases, and what we've done here, is filed this 3-part application, which has been used successfully over the last 30 plus years that 830G has been in effect. It's been used in over 50, probably over 60 municipalities at this point. Before I turn it over to Mr. Levy to introduce the commission to Vessel and its very innovative approach to housing, I will note briefly that there is certainly a need for affordable housing. Of course, as I'm sure the commission can see, you turn on the news, there's need for housing nationally, but there is also a need specifically in Cheshire. As of 2022, Connecticut Department of Housing's 10% list, a listing of the affordable housing units in every municipality provides that only 3.54% of Cheshire's housing stock is considered affordable. And for the commission's reference, our affordability plan provides calculations based on 2022 HUD numbers as to what these affordable rental prices will be for the 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom. And they range between $997 and $1,299 for the 1-bedroom apartment and $1,194 and $1,587 for the 2-bedroom. So that just gives the commission a little bit of an idea of what these affordable units will go for based on 2022 numbers, which will of course be adjusted each year. Now, these rental prices will reach members of your community who otherwise would not have been able to find housing in the area. We're talking about your teachers, your firefighters, your police officers, and so on. And again, it's no secret that rents are rising everywhere. I think every time I turn on the news or open up the Times or the Current or whatever it may be, you're seeing news coverage on rising rents, lack of affordable housing, lack of housing diversity, and what we've provided the commission with is that separately bound package that we submitted in March. We call it our Affordable Housing Needs Memorandum. That provides the commission with some additional data that it can peruse about the affordable housing need, again, in Cheshire and the region. Lastly, I'll just note that both the 2016 Cheshire Plan of Conservation and Development, as well as Cheshire's 2022 Affordable Housing Plan, recognize the need for affordable, diverse housing options. This proposal helps implement those goals. So with that, I will hand it over to Josh Levy.
Could I just ask you one question before you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The noise
I'm
came
sorry.
this way. Absolutely.
You had said that 30% would be affordable.
Correct.
Are any of that 30% going to be state assisted Section 8?
No. Section 8 is a different program. Affordable can mean deed restricted or subject to the 830G cap. Section 8 is a totally different program. It has nothing to do with 830G. Unfortunately, the fact that 830G is at Section 830G, it confuses people frequently.
That's what I wanted to know. So
Right.
it's
Totally
not
different program.
But they could pay for the apartment or no? Will it be state assisted?
Well, if there is a tenant who has an Section 8 housing voucher, that tenant can certainly apply for one of the units. And generally, the way Section 8 works is you have a cap on what the Section 8 voucher will provide.
I think it's $1,000.
I'm sorry?
I think it's $1,000.
Yeah, and then the tenant has to cover the additional. So certainly, any Section 8 tenant would be able to apply for an apartment. But those tenants, I'm sorry? At any building, correct. But those tenants that are specifically for the affordable units, what we're calling the housing opportunity units, those are not considered Section 8 tenants. They're separate.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Josh?
Question.
Oh.
Right or wrong, we have a pretty good affordable housing plan in our regs. Why did you choose to do 830G and not through Cheshire's?
A couple of reasons. So as I mentioned, the dimensional requirements and the affordability requirements didn't match what we needed it to do for this particular site. And also 830G's review standard. So 830G changes the review standard in a typical special permit application. For example, the burden is on the applicant to justify the approval, and the commission has the discretion to deny based on certain impacts. That review standard is changed for an 830G application. You're really just focusing on substantial public health and safety issues. So it's a stronger application, and it gives the applicant a little bit more flexibility, which of course matches the policy of providing additional affordable housing in Connecticut.
Well, while we're on that same issue, so you said the Cheshire's regulations on affordable housing differed from 830G, and you said the design standards were different and the affordability standards were different. I think that's what you just said a moment ago.
Yeah, generally it was the dimensional requirements, I believe. That was the big one, dimensional, but also the affordability requirements were a little bit different. I don't have them directly in front of me, but we did look at the omnibus. I think the 44A is what the commission's referring to. We did look at it. It didn't match what we needed to make this site work. So we went forward
I'm
with
curious
830G.
as to how the dimensional requirements were different, if you know offhand.
I can pull up the zoning table, Mr. Commissioner. We do have a zoning table in the plans that I believe lists the underlying I-1 dimensional standards, and I can check on that, or I can ask our engineer to
Or at
look at
some
some of
point.
those.
It doesn't have to be this minute.
Sure,
All right, thank you.
no problem.
I know that you're not looking for questions now. You wanted to wait till the end, but I got to
No,
ask
no,
another
that's
question.
fine.
So 21 out of the 66 units are affordable. You said that there's a need for affordable housing.
21 out of 70, Commissioner.
21 out of 70, I'm sorry. 21 out of 70. So that's what, 45 units that are not going to be affordable. So if there's that need for affordable housing, why stop at the bare minimum so you can build on this lot?
So the 30% of the units here, the 21, that's what state statute requires. That's all the applicant has to provide to come under 830G. I will say that, and you'll hear about this in just a moment from Vessel. Vessel's mission is to provide affordable and moderately priced housing. So even the units that are not considered the housing opportunity units, those will be within the reach of moderately priced households. So we have the 21 units because that's what's required by 830G, and that's all the applicant has to provide to come under the Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act. But all the other units will be moderately priced.
So is that using 830G so you can put more units than are normally allowed?
I mean, that's part of what 830G does, is it incentivizes private developers to come forth, put in their capital, their investment, and they create affordable housing. It's not a secret. That's part of the policy of
I know,
830G.
but I'm just asking because again, it seems to me you're looking to put 70 units on a very small parcel and coming in with the very minimum that the state requires to make more money on the other units. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm going to have a bunch more questions about that after everybody else speaks.
Understood, and I just refer again respectfully the commission to the statute. So it's all that's required. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Levy and he can introduce Vessel a little.
Good evening, Commission and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. Can everybody hear me in the microphone? No, not doing a good job.
It does disconnect. It should.
Good evening. Better. Good evening, commissioners and commission. I appreciate you having us here this evening and for the opportunity to speak with you. And to address one of the initial questions that you just asked, hopefully my part of the presentation will help, address some of that. So my name is Josh Levy. I'm the Executive Vice President of Vessel. And I've spent a little over 20 years in multifamily housing. My partner and I were multifamily owners and developers of something of upwards of 20,000 apartment units over the course of our careers. And Vessel was the answer to what we saw as the problems associated with the multifamily housing industry and the paradigms that have been created. Most notably, the fact that we were the only industry where the advent of technology had not increased the quality and decreased the cost of housing over the last several decades. In fact, we had seen the reverse happen, where in many ways quality has continued to diminish and pricing has continued to increase over the last 20, 30, even 40 years. We started Vessel with the idea that housing is about providing people with an equal opportunity to achieve what they can achieve in their lives. It gives them an equal opportunity for an extraordinary life, as we talk about. And we wanted to do that with something that met the other requirements that have come to exist in communities today regarding sustainability and energy efficiency, but also to think about communities more holistically. And so one of the things I did, when we first started this business was to meet with over 100 different communities in different states to talk to them about what was missing from their housing stock. And invariably, the things that we heard over and over again was that there was no place for young people making moderate incomes to live within communities that was exciting to them. And since young people are the lifeblood of the future of communities, and bringing them in is an integral part of the economic sustainability of a community, we started thinking about how we could be part of helping to address this population. Specifically, the fact that the people in this group, notably teachers, municipal employees, firefighters, police officers, pretty much anybody returning from school, couldn't find places to live that were both high quality and priced at a level that they can afford. And so Vessel's mission is really to create a high quality luxury level apartment building at a price that regular working people can afford. And so all of our units are targeted for people making, $65,000 a year approximately, with the goal of pricing our units at levels that those people can afford, because those people are left out of all of the high priced, what everybody would call Class A multifamily housing that exists in every market around here. What we've done in order to do that is create a building that is the most sustainable. Everything we do involves sustainability measures, from things like our control over water and heating and cooling in order to optimize the efficiency of those things, to the technology that we put into the building to allow it to make sure that there are never leaks in the buildings, so that you don't end up with leaks and molds in buildings, so that you do that, to creating something that is 100% steel, that has all the most advanced life safety systems, so that it's the safest building that people are living in, to making sure that every unit is available to people with varying abilities, so that anybody that's going into the building can go into any unit and enjoy it. We use universal design in order to make sure that that's the case. We meet all the ANSI standards so that every unit is considered handicap accessible. From a sustainability perspective, there's a number of things that we do. One is the speed at which we construct our buildings. So a normal building is going to take 18 to 24 months to construct. A Vessel building takes 6 to 8 months. So that results in far less trucks on site, far less disturbances, less fossil fuel emissions, all things that, contribute to a better environment. We use all native plants on our site so that we, have less pesticides. They're drought resistant, better for the local environment, increase pollinators, things like that, to try to improve sustainability around the environment. Our buildings are made with essentially zero waste. through advanced engineering and manufacturing processes. We have a building envelope that is designed so that it's the tightest possible building envelope, so all the air transference is controlled, so that we're optimizing the energy efficiency of the building. We have solar on the roof, so that the buildings over the course of a year are expected to operate at a net zero capacity. We use things like triple glazed windows that are argon filled, so that we have high efficiency windows that are also extraordinarily soundproof. All LED lighting, all of the lighting on the site is solar as well, so that we enhance our energy efficiency that way. And many, many other things in order to make sure that, we optimize the sustainability of the building. The other thing we think about is, the ownership and management of buildings. And so one of the things we think about is the fact that ownership and management of buildings has gone, away from local operation. So every vessel building is intended to ultimately be operated by somebody who's local to a community. What we do is we build the buildings, we find sites, we provide all the back-end infrastructure in order to operate them. We oversee them from a quality control perspective. We have a back-end management team that makes sure that everybody's supported, but we try to find somebody from the community in order to be the operator or the super of the building. This is intended to do two things. One, provide an economic opportunity for somebody who's local to the community. Our first, what we call caretaker was somebody who was a firefighter in the community, gave them a secondary source of income. It also, an excellent opportunity for us to have somebody on site who's, devoted to the community already, has an alignment of interest, understands safety and other things that are important to the community. And then the design of the building is intended to, optimize all of these things. And so things like the exterior of the building is built through what's called a rain screen. So that keeps the pressure in front of the screen and behind the screen exactly the same at all times. Anybody who's ever seen rain that is driving towards a building, specifically brick buildings, you'll notice that it looks like it's driving into the building. It actually is. That's because the pressure in front of the brick and behind the brick are different. It's encouraging the water actually to come inside. That's why in the Northeast, we get the freezing and then expansion of those areas, causing bricks to pop off or causing water infiltration. In our buildings, there can never be water infiltration, so you never have damage to the buildings by virtue of that. You'll see on the side, we call this our entry court. It does two things. One is it brings in lots of natural light to the building. The second is it helps to create a thermal chimney in the building in order to optimize our energy efficiency. And then, our units are all designed with the idea of creating, mostly one-bedroom units for the population that we were just talking about. But they're also designed in order to, optimize the usable square footage of the units so that people get to use the spaces that they need. We have things like, individual areas within the bathrooms for the commode, an individual area for your shower, an individual dressing area. All the units come equipped with washer dryers, dishwasher, stainless steel appliances, 9-foot ceilings, floor to ceiling windows. So these are designed to be the highest level luxury housing units possible. They're also intertwined with our proprietary smart home technology system that does things like provide hearing and visual prompts for anybody who's hearing and visually impaired. We've controlled access into the building. We have entry alarms in every unit so that people are safe and secure. We have air monitoring and purification. So all the air coming into the units goes through a monitoring process. It also goes through purification process. So all the air that people are breathing is safe and secure. When people leave during the day and they go to use their bathrooms, they leave their bathrooms undone. UVC technology provides UVC light that sterilizes their bathrooms so they're all clean when you get home. And many, many other things, like you can stream your music through the in-home speakers that are all standard. If you're home on your birthday and nobody's called you yet, actually the in-home speakers will play happy birthday to you and make sure that everybody knows that somebody's thinking about them on their birthday. That's a little bit about us. I'm certainly happy to answer, questions now or come back and answer questions later. But the goal of our company is really to provide something that's a differentiator for people within the communities that have not had access to really high quality housing, and that deserve it, and people in the communities that we need and want in our communities as a whole. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight and look forward to speaking with you more.
Mr. Strollo, question? No? Okay. Anyone else? Thank you.
Yeah, I actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool how it's designed. My question is, it really doesn't fit into the town in that area. Is there a way that you guys can make it look better, look more farm-like? You know, we put in a bunch of, you know, affordable housing plans, and through our plan, we like to have a look and feel of the town. This is a white box shoved in the middle on Route 10. It would be better if it was down the road on West Johnson, where we have a nice surgical center that looks just like that. It fit in really there. Nice. Is there something that you can do to change the the roof line, the outside, you know, darken it up, make it fit a little better? It is sharp looking. I have a question on that skylight staircase. How much bleed? Is there going to be a lot of light pollution? You know, that doesn't add to the town when we add a lot of light pollution. And to me, that looks like that's going to be bright and lit up and hurt that way. So to fit in the town and something the town wants, and, you know, let's make it fit.
Yeah, no, all really good questions. I'm going to try to take them one at a time, and if I miss any, just remind me if that's okay. So a few things. One is the light intrusion. No, there's no light spillage from the building, really. All the lights are actually directed internally, that anything that's in the building. So you don't have anything protruding from the building. You also don't have anything like some buildings have what I would refer to as floodlights on them, right? They're lighting outside of the building as well. We have none of that either. So everything's designed so that the light is encased within both the building and also within the site itself. And you'll probably see on our photometric plan, we've taken, you know, made sure that the light spillage from any of the outdoor lights also don't spill outside the property lines. In terms of the roof line, so we can't do anything about the roof line in terms of how flat, in terms of the flatness of it, you know, for a few reasons. One of them is that, you know, we maximize the solar photovoltaic on the roof that way. But the facade can certainly be darkened. It comes in different colors. We can even do it in a dual color. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll bring it up and show you what that looks like, because we've recently done that for another town where it incorporates a I'm going to walk around, pardon me.
I mean,
Where it incorporates basically a wood grain contrast in between here to make it look a little bit more organic, in a sense. So I'll be happy to bring up a version of that on my iPad. I'll show you when it's okay with you, you know, we can talk more about that.
Yeah, it's funny with him with that question. In most of your examples of the affordable housing that you put in your report here, they all have ridge lines and look
Yeah, they
pretty
have
nice.
gable roofs. They look really nice. They fit in.
That's
There's
what you
some
put in
brick
here.
ones, but
And then you gave us that.
Insane
Yeah.
asylum.
Which is kind of weird.
Yeah, so what I would say is that there's a couple of different things to think about in terms of, you know, what's considered affordable housing. You know, one is that there's affordable housing that's, you know, as one gentleman asked, you know, is it state financed or subsidized? There's that, and certainly there's properties that are done that way that look very nice, but they're, you know, state funded, state financed, and operated under that program. That's not what this is. Then there's affordable housing where, you know, developers are looking at the development and they're subsidizing the units by increasing the price on the conventional units, on the non-affordable units, the non 30%, where those prices end up being beyond the reach of a regular working person, a regular renter. You know, what you see in most of the state is that those rents start at about $2,000 a month, which, you know, a young teacher can't afford. So, you know, what we've done is try to do something that is higher quality than what, you know, most of those, if not all of them, are doing by providing steel buildings that are safer and other things like that, but also trying to do it in a way where all of our units, for regardless of whether they're rent restricted, could be rented to somebody who's a person who's working in the community and needs the housing and deserves a higher quality housing product.
what keeps the moderate cost moderate? Like 4 years from now, the non 30%, the 70%, can they be raised to $2,200 a month? What's going to hold that from
Yeah, so
increasing?
no, it's a fine question. The answer is there's no program that does it. We started the company as a mission-driven company in order to, sort of address this segment. And it's just, that's what our goal is. Obviously, there's, things that, always can impact, the affordability of a unit. Tax rates could go up 10%, things like that. But that's what our goal as an organization is and why we created this company as opposed to, the other kind of development we were doing historically.
Just for the record, counsel for the applicant, Andre Gomes. Josh, I'm actually going to ask you to just talk a little bit about why through you, Mr. Chairman, why the design of the building is not as flexible as you would in a traditional construction building, given Vessel's mission and its approach to I think you call it the productization of housing. So if you could just speak to that for a moment, it gives the commission a little bit more insight into why this is the design that, in order to achieve all of Vessel's goals and to make this as affordable and as high tech, which you do not see in Mr. Chairman, the housing photos that you were talking about, they do not have this technology. They don't have close to this technology. So in order to achieve that technology, that modernity that Vessel is trying to provide, there's some necessary restrictions on the design. So I'll ask Josh to just weigh in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Attorney Gomes was referencing, the thing that we tried to do with Vessel was the productization of apartment buildings. And one of the things, that I was alluding to before is that what we'd seen is that we're constantly seeing increased costs and decreased quality, but also that the cost of building is, constantly passed to the end renter, which results in people in communities not being able to afford, nice apartment buildings. And so what we tried to do through productization was really to, sort of analogize it, was the difference between a great pair of Nike sneakers and a custom pair of shoes. Most people don't wear custom shoes, but every apartment building, in a sense, has a custom pair of shoes in and of itself, in that it is custom designed to, every specification in a community. What that leads to is obviously a lot of increase in costs. It also means that we're the only industry that doesn't really learn from, building to building. So if you look at the car industry, or you look at the people who make, what is now, flat screen TVs, what you see is that over the course of time, every single product gets better and better and better, and often the price goes down. So, for those of you who, remember, I think I was in college at the time when the first plasma TV came out, it was over $20,000. Now we go to Target, we can get a better quality version of that than existed then for about $600, maybe even less. And the reason that that's happened is because you can monetize the intellectual property of that, the cost that they put into design it up front over many units. And because they learn every time they produce a version of it, in the same way that you learn from producing a version of a car. And so it gets better and better and better over time, because you benefit from those learning processes. And so we designed Vessel in order to meet the code of, all 50 states. We spent over 3 years on the design and optimizing the design, both from an implementation perspective, so that it could be implemented quickly and efficiently, from a sustainability perspective, energy efficiency, making sure it was the healthiest housing available on the market, also making sure there was the safest housing available on the market. And in order to do that, standardized the design of it so that we could, both continue to see, improvement over time in terms of the quality getting better and better and better each time, the way that all of the other products in our society do. And also so that we could do something that provided the highest level quality, at a price point that isn't available in the market normally.
Thank you. I'll just note two things for the record, Mr. Chairman, or I fibbed three. In response, I believe Commissioner Tedisco, is it, had asked for some of the dimensional requirements. I'm looking at the zoning table on our site plan. Some of the things that we differ from the I-1 was the front yard setback, the minimum lot area per dwelling unit, as well as parking. Everything else we're actually in compliance with. Like I said, we start with the existing regulations and then tweak what we need to be able to fit what we need to fit onto the site to make this work. But those are the dimensional standards that we differed from, just looking at the zoning table. And then Commissioner, is it Mercado, had asked about I believe the light pollution. We do have a photometric plan in our plan set. I believe it's sheet 6, and you can see that there's no trespass beyond the property lines. There's a little bit of extra light right at the site drive, I believe for obviously security purposes, but you can see there that we've confirmed we're within the site.
Real quick, while we're on dimensional idea, what's the height of the building?
About 55 feet.
Okay,
And the maximum in the I-1 is 65, and we kept that same maximum in the HODs. We're at 55.
okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And that height, is that relative to the size of the property too, or no? Maybe a question for Michael, but.
No, it's district-wide, the 65 feet.
Right, so you could go, regardless of the size of the footprint of the property, you can go as high as 65 feet.
Provided the site had, if it was a use specific to setbacks and parking requirements for that use. You met
Okay.
met those performance standards.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if we may, I know this is a little bit awkward, but the commission had asked about some of the design alterations that we could make, and Mr. Levy had suggested the colors. Do you want to try and plug it in here?
Yeah, you could probably get it up on the TV screen.
Mr. Levy will work on getting a copy of that up to the commission somehow during this presentation. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Seamus Moran, our civil engineer, to come up and present the site plan.
Sure.
Actually, Mr. Levy is quicker than I thought he'd be. No offense.
Worked for a second.
Let's have Seamus.
Okay.
Just hit later.
Mike? Eric. That's, here we go.
Thank you.
So I believe Mr. Levy's going to email a copy of that to Mr. Glidden so the commission can get hard copies. But that gives the commission an idea of some of the alteration we can make to the panelization on the front to provide a little bit more articulation to the front of the building.
It's mainly white though. Can all that be changed and do that? Is there something with the white that helps in the efficiency or anything that?
No, I believe there's flexibility to the color. I think it's just a matter of what's available because it is a panelized system. So it's what's available on the market, but there's no magic to the white, if you will.
Okay.
If you wanted it like all gray instead of white, it could be,
There's something to tone it down, hide it a bit.
it could be, yeah, it could be gray.
Yeah, muted. That's better.
And if the commission wanted something like a gray with the I'm calling it wood paneling, but it's not wood paneling. If the commission wanted something like that, it's something that you could impose as a condition of approval, and we'd be flexible with that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, now I will ask Mr. Moran to come up and discuss the site plan.
There we go. All right. Good evening, Commission. I don't have a pointer, so I have to point with my hand, so I'll be up at the screen. Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Seamus Moran, a professional engineer in Connecticut for H&H Engineering Associates, and I'm the project engineer for the job. So what I'll do is just a summary of what I'll do. I'll go over the existing conditions quickly, the site layout plan, the grading and drainage plan, the utility plan, soil erosion and sediment control, and then briefly touch on the lighting, and then I can pass it off to, I believe, Mark, who will be, I'm sorry, Tom, who will be talking about the landscaping, which I will not do. So, Andrea, can we go back one? Okay, can we just go back one? I'll just start with the existing. It's the simplest one. So just to orient you, Realty Drive is on the bottom of the page here. Highland Avenue is on the left-hand side here, and obviously our site, 1.32 acres. You can see is undeveloped land here in the center of the page. Really, there's not a whole lot to point out here, except I do want to point out that the existing catch basins in Realty Drive end up discharging through this storm network. There's a catchment system that discharges in the northwest corner of our property, and that's really the only improvement on our property since the lot is completely undeveloped at this point. So I can move along. This here is a site development plan. I'm sorry, site layout plan in the middle of the page here. You can see the building. What you see here is just one single floor. Obviously, we're looking at it planimetrically. It's a 5-story building, 70 units. The parking is around the building. As you can see, there's a 2-way entrance and exit off of Highland Avenue and another separate 2-way entrance and exit off of Realty Drive. There are 77 parking spaces provided, including 4 accessible parking spaces, 2 compact spaces, and 8 total EV-ready spaces, 7 of which are these spaces here, which are the standard, and 1 of the accessible spaces is also EV-ready. There is a bike rack shown on the property here in this location. There are snow storage areas shown scattered throughout, and a snow storage table shown on the plan. We do have dumpsters shown here in the northeast corner, as well as an 8-foot tall enclosure to shade, to screen those dumpsters. Per Public Act 21-29, 74 spaces would be required, where 77 are provided, and Mark, our traffic engineer, will discuss the IT and how even that, the 74 minimum is above what the actual use would otherwise require, based on, I believe it's 33 other similar sites, but Mark can touch on that. If we can advance one. This here is the grading and drainage plan. So I will keep it somewhat high level just because there is a lot of information, but if you have more elaborate questions, I can certainly answer those. But overall, we are looking at a stormwater management area A, which is here, stormwater management area B, which is a bioretention basin, and stormwater management area C, which is an infiltration trench. So stormwater management area A here is a subsurface infiltration system, the ADS StormTech SC710s. And what that is the stormwater management system for the proposed parking lot. You can see a few catch basins scattered throughout the parking lot. All of those catch basins direct the stormwater runoff generated from the proposed parking lot and discharges it into the subsurface detention system, where it goes through an isolator row, which is essentially just a row that's wrapped in fabric. And it's allowed, what it does is it pre-treats the stormwater. So your water quality event is your 1-inch storm event. That's where 90% of your constituents, 90% of constituents in stormwater comes off of the surfaces in that first 1-inch flush. The isolator rows are designed for the 10-year storm event at a minimum. So we don't have to go too much further into that. Beyond that, we are also infiltrating. We have very highly infiltrating soils. We are infiltrating through the 50-year storm event, almost up to the 100-year storm event. The weir elevation in the outlet control structure shows a pass of about 3/8 of an inch of water over the top of that weir for the 100-year storm event. So in excess of the 50-year storm event, we will be infiltrating all of that stormwater generated from the parking lot. So there will be no discharge to this outlet through the 50-year storm event. Stormwater Management Area B is the bioretention basin here. It's a low impact development feature we've incorporated, and that's to separate the building rooftop runoff, which is generally considered clean, from the parking lot runoff, which is the dirty stormwater. The bioretention basin is sized to infiltrate through the 25-year storm event. The overflow from the 25-year storm event discharges to Stormwater Management Area A, which has already been sized for that additional flow. So total, with the two stormwater management systems, A and B, the discharges was less than the 50-year storm event to the northwest corner. Lastly, we have an infiltration trench along the eastern side of the parking lot, and that is just to capture runoff generated from the off-site upland area that's coming across the eastern property onto our property, and we're infiltrating it before it gets into our parking lot because we want to keep that separate from our stormwater management system for the parking lot. This here is the utilities plan. So we do have in Highland Avenue and in Realty Drive, we have public water and public sewer. As Attorney Gomes pointed out, we already have approval from the WPCA for that sanitary sewer connection. There's a lateral coming from Highland Avenue into our site, which we're proposing to connect to that existing lateral. And we're proposing a water line connection to Realty Drive, which we have a will serve letter from the water company that we have adequate pressure and flow at that location. Lastly, Eversource also provided a letter. We're connecting to the CLMP pole here to a new transformer to run our underground electric telephony cable into the northeast corner of the building. This here is the soil erosion and sediment control plan. Designed per the erosion and sediment control guidelines. We have all the requirements, meet all the requirements, including a construction entrance, silt fence, erosion control matting, temporary soil stockpile areas, silt sacks, a temporary sediment trap shown in the northeast corner, sized according to the manual, and then temporary diversion swales, which are shown in these locations here. This here is the vehicle turning plan, which is based on the largest vehicle that we received from the fire marshal's office. So that was updated recently, like I believe it was 2 weeks ago, based on comments we received from them. So this was submitted, and this shows adequate turning radius.
I think you have to recat it because that's not the unit that we have. You have an E100 foot, and I know it's a Pierce 105. So I don't know if the wheelbase might be different.
Yeah,
and it's not just in the CAD system. It should be pretty easy. But
yeah, so what happened was the original one we submitted was the E100 ladder. And then the fire marshal pointed out we have a Pierce truck, and he gave me the template. So we added the template to it, and we submitted that for the record.
We got the E1.
The one that we submitted, I believe.
Commissioner, there should be 2 vehicle turning plans in the materials. I believe there is one in the March 9th materials, and then there's the one from, I'm looking at Mr. Glidden. There's one also from the April 19th materials. We ran the second one, Commissioner, at the request of the fire marshal. So, yeah. So if the commission will look at tab 9 of the March 9th application materials, that's the first vehicle turning plan we did for an E100.
Yeah, but how come this is not here? E1.
Title block.
Still pretty tough. Your title.
E100 on your title block.
Blows up.
Oh.
You can't.
Okay.
Apologies, the title block must have been left, but we did run the 2 different models at the request of the fire marshal.
Yeah, well, all we have is Pierce. I know that. So.
And I do believe, and I of course defer to Mr. Glidden on this, I do believe when the fire marshal reviewed the second requested vehicle turning exhibit, it was acceptable to the fire marshal. So of course, Mr. Glidden can weigh in on that.
All right, thank you.
I think that's all we need for this one, Andrea. The next slide. Oh, and then landscaping, I'm sorry. I thought I was talking about lighting. I think Andre already talked about the lighting briefly. We do have solar fixtures around the parking lot. 15 foot 7 inches are the height. And we do not have any light trespass as shown on the photometric plan, which is not here in front of you. But I just wanted to touch on that. So now I'll pass along to Tom, who will discuss the landscaping plan, unless, of course, you have a question.
I just have a question. In reading through, you had mentioned MDC. Was that just a typo? Because we have nothing to
Yes.
do with MDC. It's South Central and,
Yes. So it was South Central was the water company,
yeah.
and the WPCA was the sewer. So that was a typo.
Okay,
I
so
apologize.
MDC meant nothing,
Yes.
Metropolitan District, which
Correct.
has nothing to do with Cheshire.
Yes. I'm sorry. That's a
okay.
typo.
I just want to clarify.
Of course. What's that? And just also quickly, we did receive one round of comments from the town engineer. Items that we forgot to include, such as the geotechnical report, we submitted those. He provided a letter on March 31st, just essentially signing off, saying that the plan meets the town requirements, and he doesn't see any reason to deny. And we also, as we mentioned, as Mr. Glennon pointed out, we met with the fire marshal, revised a few things based on their comments, and I don't believe there are any other outstanding comments from any of the reviewing agents. So just with all of that information, with the engineering practices we've put forward and the review comments, we don't think there's any health or safety issues with the associated site plan.
Just one more question. The private road, what's I'm sure there must be some kind of, I don't know, association with the private road for taking care of the private road? Because that's what I want to
So
know. For like snow removal and all that stuff.
Sure,
Because
so
you'll be
it's-
accessing a private road, one of your entrances. So what is that? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so the whole site is maintained by Vessel. They will remain the owner, and as Josh pointed out, there's a site.
But who
super-
owns the road that you're coming out on?
Realty Drive, you mean?
Yeah,
or
Realty
Highland Avenue?
Drive. Yeah.
Yes, Realty Drive is owned by an association.
Okay, so there's an association for that drive. Already there. Okay. And then so somebody maintains that road as far as,
Yes, there's already a maintenance plan in place for the tenants that are already have properties on that road for purposes of maintaining the road and anything having to do with it. And the agreement calls for the owner of this property to pay their pro rata share to whatever their costs are each year.
so what is their ruling on parking in the street?
They don't have anything mentioned in their.
They have nothing in their
agreements about
association
Not
plan?
that. Not that they've showed us, no.
That's just a concern of mine because it is a private road and you're blocking all the other businesses. So if, like, let's say, they have a block party there and they park out on the road, I mean, they could block all the businesses up. I mean, that's if it's a private road.
Yeah, it's a private road, essentially co-owned by all of the tenants, so to speak, that are on it. One of which is
Being in the towing business, if you parked on Route 10, the Cheshire PD could pull in and
Correct.
tow all those cars.
Mhm.
If it's on the private road, you can't do anything.
Mhm.
Then it's a whole different deal, especially with the new statutes coming in where you have to wait 24 hours before you tow. So that's what, to me, it's a big deal.
Oh, you mean can they park on our lot? Is that what you're
On
asking?
the private road,
Oh,
which is that road there, that's a problem to me because the new law that's coming in, you'll be able to park there for 24 hours before you're towed. That's the new statute coming in.
So I understand your concern, Commissioner. We don't anticipate that we're going to have any issues with parking, given again.
Nobody
the-
ever, anticipates it, but it's going to be an issue if somebody parks on the road
Could,
because that's going to be the new
could I
regulation.
interject maybe just, is it something, let's just say, maybe the applicant to agree to this, putting on the plan that showed no parking signs on the frontage along Realty Road?
I would say that'd be the only way that you could do that because if somebody parks on that road with this new statute, it's a private road. you will
Understood.
not
Would-
be able to tow off
Would
that
you,
road for
would you
24
agree to
hours.
that, to add to the plans, no parking signs on Realty Drive?
I just don't know. if
Subject to being allowed to under the association documents. That's the only concern.
Yeah, it would
Um,
have to be changed in the association, but I really don't know with this new statute coming in, if it's even going to affect it.
Meaning the
There's
20
something on the books right now, if you look into legislative that's going through right now.
I'm not familiar with that particular.
You should, because it's going to affect all of these kind of developments with private property towing. And that being a private road, if somebody parks in that road, they'll have to wait 24 hours before you can tow it.
Understood. So what we're suggesting, as Mr. Glidden suggested, was we'd be willing to explore whether we can install signage, and if it is
I don't
allowed
even-
by the
Signage doesn't
association.
work. They still have to have the period of 24 hours.
Understood. So, I mean, there's nothing we can do about the statute.
I know,
and-
but I'm saying it's coming up now, so that just-
Understood, and we will certainly keep that in mind. There's nothing we can do about the statute, unfortunately, and just legally speaking, again, putting on my lawyer hat here, we are entitled to a presumption that will comply with our proposal, right? So that our tenants will park on site where they're supposed to, and not park in a no parking zone, et cetera, et cetera. We're entitled to a legal presumption for that. So
But that would have to be in the association's plan, which would have to be presented to us also.
So what we're willing to suggest as a potential condition of approval is that, and we can craft the language and with Mr. Glidden, is that we'd be willing to explore discussing the installation of no parking signage in front of our site frontage on Realty Drive. I cannot commit to that here because I don't know what the association documents say in terms of actually installing
Association have to be
signage.
involved in the documentation and that we'd have to present to that association document, I would think.
Well, that's again, we'd suggest that we impose it as a condition of approval that the applicant explore or make reasonable efforts to install signage along the frontage. I can tell you that we'll do what we can. We'll make reasonable efforts, but I can't obligate the commission to sign it, or not the commission, excuse me, obligate the association to signage when I don't know what the association documents say off the top of my head regarding new signage.
Thank you.
So
Mr. Bowman?
I need a little clarification. Sean, you know about these regulations because you're a tow truck
It's-
operator. Just
Yeah.
let me ask my question, and then possibly someone can answer it. But is this a state statute today, or is this a proposed state statute?
It's a proposed state statute that's supposed to be approved because of a lot of illegal parking and towing off of, like condos and all that stuff. So they're trying to do like a waiting period, a 24-hour waiting period from the property.
So what you're telling me is on private property, if they block
Yes,
some vehicle, some
yes,
safety vehicle, it can't be towed under
No.
any circumstances? Do
24
they
hours.
have the ability to block fire trucks, police cars, and ambulances?
If they're blocking the
So-
road, that's what I'm saying. Like that's my concern because of this new statute that's coming out.
So no, please let me
Yeah.
finish, Woody. I need this clarified.
Yeah, it would have to be, the car could be removed, but it would be, it's a really difficult thing that's going on right now because of all the stuff's going on. So,
Okay, but it's not a regulation today.
okay, it's,
Oh,
it's,
no,
hap-
no,
it's
I'm-
gonna,
I'm-
it's,
I'm
I'm just
just
saying
trying
is
to
that
understand
right
it.
now the private property style is that if it's posted and you know where the vehicle's going to be towed, you could tow it off once the association would have to order the tow because the vehicle be parked in the road. It would not be their property. It'd be the association's property. So they would have to have it signed that they were going to tow the vehicle off. Okay. That's what the regulation is right now. But if they do this period of 24 hours, which I think it's going to happen, it's very, very serious that's going to happen. It's a before right now. If that happens, then those vehicles that are in the roadway would stay there for 24 hours before they could be moved.
Is that during snowstorms?
So Commissioner, if I may, exactly, it's proposed legislation. And if I had a crystal ball to predict all the legislation, I'd be in DC or something along those lines.
I didn't understand it, that it was proposed or actual current, and it's proposed.
The current is they would have to have signage that the vehicle is going to be towed off. That's the
Understood.
current.
So what we're suggesting again is we're willing to make reasonable efforts to try and get signage on that area. I'll also note there was just, I believe it was you, Commissioner, had brought up emergency vehicles. I don't have the citation off the top of my head, but there is a very clear state statute for very good public policy reasons that fire trucks, police, ambulance, EMS can push, they can drive on your lawn, they can push your own car out of the way, they can push anything out of the way to get to an emergency. And again, we did run this by the fire marshal and town staff. No one had any concerns from an emergency vehicle perspective. And the reason I'm harping on that is, again, going back to the 830G standard, which is denial only based on substantial public health and safety. That's really what it comes down to. So there's nothing here regarding that. But again, Commissioner, we're happy to explore with the association if it's allowed, and if it is, we'll make reasonable efforts to get that signage on there. I just can't commit to it. Okay. I will hand it off now to Mr. Graceffa to touch base on our landscaping.
Mr. Chairman, quick question.
Oh, sure, Mr. Salmon, yeah.
Can that association bylaws be part of the app? I'd like to see it. Could that be required or shown?
So again, with all due respect, Commissioner, there's really no legal zoning basis to require the association bylaws to be part of our application. We're really just looking at this under the 830G review standard. That's really just the commission's purview here. And I'm just trying to not open up a Pandora's box. Certainly, if there are any issues with the association, that's something that is between the association and the property owner. And if any type of zoning enforcement action or something along those lines had to come up, that's on town staff. But it really has nothing to do with our application here. Thank you.
Much simpler topic. My name is Tom Graceffa. I'm a licensed landscape architect in Connecticut, and I've been at this a few years. So what we're looking at here is a complement to the building architecture and the simplicity of the overall site. And I would say that the objective with the plant material and the way it's being used at the site is to simplify things and to beautify this so that there's a dramatic effect for a long time. Two major things are happening here. One is plant material along both sides of the building that has the windows in each unit, and they're very tall plant material in those locations that will reach a third to a half side of the building over their lifetime, but a very dramatic beech tree. The other major shade trees are in islands in 3 locations here, and the rest of the site is ornamented and corralled, if you will, for the walking and the visual parts of this, with grasses and perennials mixed in various recipes across the front of the building and along the back. Meadow is used, meadow planting, which is basically flowers and tall grasses along the hashed side of the building. And there are some taller grasses used to screen parking in the obvious places that you would normally try to block bumpers and that sort of thing. But the idea is that this drama of the building is duplicated with the major plant material, and the rest is left as a very calm environment. So I would welcome questions on anything involved in this, but I don't know, is there a botany expert in the crowd here today?
Cheshire is the bedding plant capital of Connecticut, and you use perennials and not annuals, but I'm not going to go there. So if you asked for an expert, so I was going to give it to you.
You use perennials and not annuals? We don't have annuals in this plan.
I'm just making a joke.
All righty. Well taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the humor. Handing it over to Mark Vertucci, our traffic engineer.
Good evening. I'm Mark Vertucci. I'm a senior transportation engineer at Fuss & O'Neill. We're at 146 Hartford Road in Manchester. I'm a registered professional engineer and professional traffic operations engineer as well. Fuss and O'Neill did prepare a traffic impact study. Just want to briefly describe our findings for you here this evening. As we're aware here, the site is located on the northeast corner of Route 10 and Realty Drive. So excellent access to Route 10. There's two driveway locations. The drive on Realty is about 200 feet to the east of Route 10, and the driveway on Route 10 has been located opposite the driveway to 1247 Highland Avenue. So we've consolidated access there at one intersection. That's good access management and what the DOT likes to see for safe access and egress on a state roadway. So as part of the study, we did review intersection operations at both of the site driveway locations, as well as the intersection of Route 10 at Realty Drive. So we did go out and we did traffic counts at Route 10 at Realty Drive back in January, and the counts indicated, the peak hours of traffic are 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning and 4:15 to 5:15 in the afternoon. So those were the peak hours that we analyzed in the study. We expect this development, if it were to get approved, by the time it gets built, it would be 2024. So we did add a year of growth to those volumes, a 0.8% growth factor per the DOT planning division. As far as what we expect the site is going to generate, we utilize rates provided in the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. This is an industry accepted resource for determining traffic generation for various land uses. So for the 70 apartment units proposed, the manual projects 26 trips will be generated in the morning peak hour of traffic, and 27 trips will be generated in the afternoon peak hour. So this is a very minimal traffic generator. So to determine the impact of these additional trips on the study intersections, we did conduct a capacity analysis. The analysis did reveal both of the site driveway intersections, as well as the Route 10 at Realty Drive intersection, will operate at acceptable levels of service both before and after the introduction of the site traffic. And most importantly, the Route 10 Highland Avenue approaches to both the site driveway intersection and the Realty Drive intersection will continue to operate at an efficient level of service A. Route 10 is wide. There are nice wide shoulders there. So when you get a vehicle approaching the driveway wanting to turn left in, there is ample bypass capability for a through vehicle to get around a left turning vehicle waiting to go into the site. So there's very little delay to traffic moving on Route 10. From a safety perspective, we did review intersection site distances from both of the proposed site driveway locations on Realty Drive and Route 10. The intersection site distances were found to exceed DOT criteria for safe egress at both locations. We also looked at crash history. We reviewed the latest 3 years of available data in the Yukon Crash Repository. And what we found in the vicinity of the Route 10 Realty Drive intersection, there was an average of 1 crash per year. They were all minor fender benders, no injuries reported in any of those crashes. So the type and frequency of these crashes was not considered abnormal for an arterial such as Route 10, and there were no identifiable crash patterns. So just to summarize the findings of our study, the study did conclude the proposed development will have no significant impact to traffic operations on the adjacent road network, and the development traffic can be safely and efficiently accommodated. I did want to point out as well, given this is a state road and we are proposing work in the state right-of-way with a driveway curb cut, also a drainage connection, this is subject to review by the Department of Transportation's District 1 office for an encroachment permit. So the DOT will be reviewing this application as well, should it get approved here at the town level. And I was not going to talk about parking, but it was mentioned earlier, so I just I just wanted to make a quick note on the parking. We have provided, as was previously noted, 77 spaces. Based on State Public Act 21-29, which was adopted by the legislature, parking limitations for multi-family developments were set at a requirement of 1 space provided for each 1-bedroom unit and a minimum of 2 spaces for each 2-bedroom unit. So based on that requirement, we would need 74 spaces. So we're in excess of that by 3 spaces. I also reviewed rates in the ITE parking generation manual, which is an industry accepted resource for determining parking generation. The ITE rates are actually quite a bit lower than the state rates. The ITE requires 0.75 spaces per bedroom for a weekday, so that would necessitate 56 spaces for the site. We're well over that as well. And furthermore, I wanted to cite a local study that was done by F.A. Hesketh Associates a few years back, where they actually went out and counted some suburban apartment developments in Middletown and Bloomfield, 4 different sites. They counted actual parking demand at these apartment complexes. And that study concluded that the demand was an average of 0.73 parked cars per bedroom. So it was right in line with those ITE rates. The highest observed demand was 0.94 vehicles per bedroom. So again, in line with the ITE rates and less than the state standard. So we are confident that we have provided
3 over for the whole complex.
3 over the state standard. We're in excess of 20 over what ITE
1
would
parking
recommend.
spot per single bedroom unit. Correct?
The state statute is one space per
Yeah, just one.
per
one.
bedroom. Correct.
Yeah. So if my son rents one of these and I go to visit him, where do I park?
That those rates account for residents, visitors. They're
does.
actual counts that were done at these developments.
So it's not an assigned spot. So if I'm in 3B, I don't get the 3B spot. Is that how it works with the apartments, or no?
Sure.
They have assigned spots or no?
So there is no assigned parking spot at this time. And I think when the question comes up, Commissioner, about, visitor parking, often commissions and just people in general presume that they're going to be pulling up and that this is going to be a fully occupied parking lot, that all 70 units are going to be there and using all of the parking spaces there, and that there will be no visitor parking. The reality is that there are different people on different schedules, different work schedules, they're traveling. So given the experience that you just heard, or the data that you just heard from Mr. Vertucci, and certainly the data that went into putting it together, Public Act 2129, the 1 space per 1 bedroom unit, 2 spaces per 2-bedroom unit, that accounts for the inevitable flow through a visitor. So if you were to visit your son on this site, you'd pull in, you'd find an empty spot, and you would park. And it, to put it more colloquially, it kind of evens out over time because people are constantly circulating through the site.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is like holidays or stuff like that. So people always park everywhere. I mean, I'm in the business.
Understood, and
I'm
I
in
don't
the
question.
business.
I don't question
And
your.
that's when
your
the problem
experience.
starts. As I said, so like, you're putting all these units and you only have 3 extra parking spots. That seems not enough for me.
Understood. So again, refer back to the state, the
That
state
refers
public
back
act.
to the private road. That's where, like I said, that's where I'm going with this. That's what makes me nervous.
Understood. And we go back to the condition we were discussing about no parking signage. We're
Yeah,
entitled to the
That's an
presumption.
issue for me.
Understood. The only thing I'll note, Commissioner, is that if there are holidays, not every single one of these 70 apartments are going to be celebrating their holidays at the apartment. People travel to family as
No,
well. So
I
again,
get
it's
it,
kind
but,
of the natural progression of how
But it's
parking
all
cycles through.
basically one person, they're going to have a friend come over, hopefully, and there's no room. It's like,
I'll just say this regarding parking. No one has a greater interest in ensuring that their site is appropriately parked than the owner of the development who wants to keep tenants happy and living there
Yeah.
and ensuring that they're there. So based on their experience, and again, based on those state standards, we believe this is appropriately parked. And keep in mind, these are smaller units, 1-bedroom units. There's only 4 2-bedroom units. Some people may not even have cars. People use ride shares, things like that. So just keep that in mind. And I think a lot of the industry data supports that this is appropriately parked.
I think that if this was like in a city or a more, we're in a town where people drive everywhere. I mean, if you're working, you're not going to jump on the school bus and go someplace, or the city bus. I mean, it's like everybody's going to have a car to go someplace. That's because we're in a small town. If they're going to work in, Southington or Hamden or somewhere else, they have to have a car. So even in Cheshire, but that's what I'm saying. So like, that being said, is a lot of this data is for more city type people. I mean, is this a rural data? I mean, that's what I understand.
I believe, respectfully, I don't think that's accurate, that it's not urbanized parking data, but I'll have Mr. Vertucci.
Yeah, the FA Hesketh study that I cited, they counted 4 suburban apartment complexes in Bloomfield and in Middletown. So very, very similar to
Middletown are like cities. I mean, there's 20.
No,
I mean, how many people live in Middletown?
These were not down. This was not downtown. This was off of Route 66. No Crest apartments. So not a location where there's, you can walk to anything. Everybody is, owns their own vehicle.
Were there bus lines on those?
That's where they were. Route 66 in Middletown is a bus line. But these are very, very similar to this site, and that's why they were selected to count, because they were very suburban locations. But that data supported the ITE rates of about 0.75 vehicles parked per bedroom unit, which is actually substantially less than the state requirement. There were 2 in Bloomfield, 2 in Middletown.
Are those existing buildings that are, where does Vessel have buildings like this currently operating?
In the town.
So we currently have a building that's opened and operating in New Jersey. I believe it's Trenton, New Jersey. We have a building that is currently under construction in New London, and that's it. It's a newer company. Again, you heard from Mr. Levy that the owners of Vessel are highly experienced in the development industry, particularly in affordable housing. But this innovative design, we have Trenton, New Jersey, the New London one, which is currently under construction.
Are there your buildings in Middletown and Bloomfield that were mentioned?
No, I believe that was just a generalized, and I'll look to Mr. Vertucci. It was just a generalized study that FA Hesketh did. Again, I think it's a lot of multifamily public hearings get the question about parking. And actually, if the commission saw a recent article in the Wall Street Journal that America is overparked, I think that FA Hesketh took it upon itself to go and count some of these more suburban communities to actually get boots on the ground information.
Well, I think we've heard that before with other applications. What you're saying, it still makes us nervous having just enough cars for everybody to have one space. Can the site accommodate more spaces, or is that the maximum number of parking spaces that the site can accommodate?
With some maneuvering, we can, if we were to push the building up, we would be able to change some of the parking spaces. There's parallel parking on the east side of the building. We would be able to change some of that, but we'd have to move the building up just ever so slightly.
Okay, so with your existing plan, this is the maximum number of spaces that you can accommodate with your existing plan for
Where the building is currently sited, yes. And it truly is where the building is. We can't move it and add more parking given fire department circulation and a sightline easement. I think that's at the front of the site. But if we were to move the building, there would be a little bit of room there. Well, I'll put it to the commission again. We meet the state minimum. We meet the state minimum and exceed it for parking. But what I'm hearing from the commission is that parking is a significant concern for this as proposed.
Parking is a safety issue. There's only two things I'm looking at, health and safety. Parking is a safety issue. People walking between cars into the roadway, they're gonna get hit. If there's too many cars pulling in and out of the driveway or the street, they're gonna get in car accidents and get hurt. That's why I look at it. You know, it's a real concern. It's a real issue.
And Commissioner, and I say this with, again, all due respect, the case law is saying that parking generally could be an issue. It's speculative. That doesn't hit the 830G standard. People circulating through a parking lot, you go to Stop and Shop and you're walking from a parking space all the way in the back, you're walking through a parking lot and there's a lot of cars pulling in and out. Simply saying that that might pose a parking issue really does not hit what 830G requires to develop a health and safety standard. But I'm hearing the commission. So what I'd suggest, Mr. Chairman, of course, we'll take additional questions. I'm going to confer with my team on the parking issue, but I will get back to the commission on that in just a moment. I just
Want to address one more thing.
Sure.
Across the street, coming out of Industrial Avenue, is our largest taxpayer, Bizzuto's.
Mhm.
Tractor trailers are coming in and out of that all day. You know, I think it's 18,000 car count a day. So you have 5,000 trucks coming in and out every day. You can understand why our concern for parking is that we do not want people parking on Route 10. We do not want people parking on the other road either because of access. So that is a concern.
understood. And
You
but-
know, so like, and I understand what your statute that you're going for, but when it comes down to it, is that, you know, we have to protect the road and the access.
Understood. And
You
on
know,
Route 10,
that-
Commissioner, you did say there's no parking along Route 10, correct? It's a towable
No,
area.
it's a towable area, but like I said, it's not, it shouldn't even be a thing. So what happens when we have a blizzard or we have a big snowstorm and you lose 10 parking spots? Then is
So-
it like, just like that, the game with the chair? You know, I mean, it's like who's
So
ever last?
Vessel has on its site plan snow storage areas, and this is certainly something that the commission can impose as a condition of approval. If we ever cannot store all the snow that's
It
on
has to be hauled
site,
off.
it will be hauled off by
Okay.
likely a private contractor.
Okay.
So that's Vessel's practice anyway.
Yeah.
So we can certainly, it wasn't a question that was brought up, so we didn't mention it, but we'd be happy to haul it off and the commission can impose that as a condition of approval. So the point is we will not lose parking as a result of
Yeah, because that's
major
a serious
snowstorm.
issue.
Understood, and we agree, and that's why it's part of Vessel's plan for its buildings.
Okay.
So a year after this is built, we find out there's a lot of overflow parking. It is on Realty Drive. How do you handle that?
So if there's any concern with the parking, it again becomes a zoning enforcement issue, but certainly there's not much you can do if people who are not, if it's not within Vessel's control, right? If someone at the wealth management office down the street, for example, starts parking on the street or things like that, it can certainly become a zoning enforcement issue, something that is issued, the ZEO could issue a cease and desist and have Vessel address it, and it could become part of that.
Part of the rental agreement, can it be in there that you can only have one vehicle per bedroom? So two if you're a two-bedroom owner, one if you're a
Certainly.
one.
I'm looking to Mr. Levy.
And then you're just limited to guests, but you can't have husband and wife living in a one bedroom and they each have a car, and there's 70 of those.
And I can tell you, having looked at many leases myself, those are frequently lease provisions that you see, maximum or setting a cap on the number of cars. So we'd be happy to accept that as a condition of approval. Max one car per bedroom, we'll say.
Fair. Thank you.
Michael, the zoning enforcement can operate on Realty Drive on a private road? As far as parking goes and everything else?
So twofold. One, no, because it would be parking on private property because it's a private road. But yes, in the sense that if you are violating a parking plan of approval, we could cite someone, but the way it would be handled would be the association would get notified of the violation.
So
It's not
this-
just one person, it would be, let's say it's 6 entities that own property on that right away. They're all going to get a notice of violation or cease and desist for the issue that's occurring.
So the association has to police it themselves?
It's twofold, yes.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the condition that was suggested as exploring the no parking along with the belt and suspender approach of saying the lease documents will also limit the number of vehicles per bedroom. I think that should alleviate that issue, at least for the concerns with tenants. That one-time event where someone may park out the road, like I said, maybe with the signs should they have the authority to.
I don't
should
see why the
remove it.
association would say no to no parking signs, but
They benefit from that.
yeah, exactly.
It
So,
it eliminates a nuisance issue for everyone else that's part of this group.
Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman, excuse me, if I may, one of the things I'm hearing the commission that parking is a concern, and part of Vessel's approach, part of my approach as the applicant's attorney is to consistently try and work with the town and work. Mr. Glidden can tell you, we've had an open communication line. We would be willing to push the building up a couple of feet if the commission were able to impose this as a condition of approval, and we could squeeze in an additional 5 spots. So if the commission is concerned with parking on site, again, it's not required. We don't think it's required as an operation from an operational perspective or statutorily. But if the commission is concerned, we're here to work with the commission. We'd be happy to put an additional 5 spots as a condition of approval.
Which way is it push?
So if the commission, actually, I can show you right here. So the commission can see here, and I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen. Yep, so the building gets pushed 3 feet closer to the street, to Route 10, yes, to Highland Avenue. And what is parallel parking currently becomes pull-in parking. And that gives us the 5 additional spaces. So if this is a concern for the commission, again, we didn't think it was operationally necessary. We wanted to keep the building where it was, but if the commission is concerned, we can certainly do that. And we did, again, anticipating that this might be a question, we did prepare an alternative plan showing what this looks like. I'm happy to hand it out to the commission so it can see what it looks exactly the same as what the commission sees here on the screen. It just relocates the building 3 feet closer to Highland Avenue and adds additional parking spaces. We'd be happy to accept that as a condition of approval.
So once you take the 3 feet away, what do you got left? Frontage.
For the frontage, Seamus, do you mind?
I can't read it. It's so small. You can't read it.
So it would become 43.7 feet.
I'm sorry. Commissioner.
43.7 feet from the street, and a minimum of 40 is required. So it would still be in compliance with the proposed regulation.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can come up, I can hand out some of these alternative plans just so the commission, or through Mr. Glidden. So, Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Glidden's handing that out, I'll just add one more piece of information to the record at this point. I will point the commission to, we did submit, and excuse me. So there is a letter that the commission has in its March 9th package. I believe it's Exhibit A to our Tab 2 letter. And it is a letter from Bob DeMarais. He's a licensed engineer in Connecticut, and he just did confirm for the record that the building has been designed to comply with all applicable building code, fire safety code, and fire prevention code provisions. So I just wanted to cap it off with that additional piece of information, refer the commission to that. Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest, I do have some closing comments, but I'd suggest perhaps that we do any additional questions the commission might have and maybe public comment, and then I can wrap up
Sure.
at the end.
I'm sure there's questions, so I'll start to my left, Mr. Bricado, and then I'll go to Mr. Tedesco.
So first is just a question on the color of the outside building. Can we get color chips of everything that's available and what our options are so we can look and pick something?
I'll look to Mr. Levy. The commission's asking for color samples of what's available for the building.
They don't have to be color chips, but all our options of what we can do with that exterior to make it blend in a little better, you know, on all the different panels. Or
Some
a
type
link
of
to a
visual?
site, something like that, you know, where you're getting it, not where you're getting it from, but, you know, a link to the site, show all the color options, what we can do. And
So we can provide some visuals on the color options.
Yep.
Certainly from an applicant's perspective, we'd love the commission to say we'd prefer a gray with like a wood tone or something and impose it as a condition of
Well, I think
approval.
you guys know what we're looking for, right? So you can go back and say, hey, we want this to blend into the town a little better, into that area, not this bright white things.
Understood. The only reason I'm saying that we'd appreciate it if the commission imposed something like that as a condition of approval is not to have to continue the hearing just for paint
Oh, I
or
would-
visual
I would
paint
agree.
samples.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I'd say
We
would be
can administratively approve that afterwards. I have no
certainly.
problem with that
And
at
we'd be happy to work with town staff on that to make it blend in a little bit more from a color perspective.
Another question. The last picture you showed me, I can see all the people standing in the windows with the shades. Are the shades part of the rooms, or are they picking it and we're going to have tie dye and all this other stuff sticking out there?
I believe they
Because I
are
know
part of
sometimes it's
the-
in the windows. So
The shades are standard and part of the windows. So we just show that for artistic purposes.
okay.
Wouldn't look
Mr.
as lively if you just had blacked out windows. So yes.
Mr.
Yeah,
Tesco.
I think that is. Yeah, that was all my questions. Thank you.
These questions just maybe for my own curiosity, but these apartments, I mean, you said a lot of interesting things. We've heard a lot of interesting things about the apartments in terms of construction and such. Aren't they awful small? I mean, you're talking about a 525 square foot apartment for one bedroom, 750 square feet, I think, for two bedrooms. That seems tiny to me.
So I'll just note before Mr. Levy, because certainly he's the expert here, but we are seeing smaller and smaller. People are downsizing, not only in Connecticut, but across the country. Many people no longer want the larger houses or even the larger apartments. You're seeing people downsize. Some of the apartment buildings that were recently constructed in Hartford, luxury apartment buildings, they're small. The apartment units are small. So certainly from the land use perspective, what I'm seeing as applicants council, we're seeing smaller and smaller units, and they're leasing up at an enormously quick rate because there's this housing need. But I'll ask Mr. Levy to weigh in just from the business perspective.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually a great question. And I always sort of shudder to actually give square footages of the units because square footage is what you learn is different depending on who gives them, because some people give square footage from the exterior wall to the center line. Other people only give interior square footage. And then there's the question of usable square footage versus gross square footage. So we quote actual usable square footage within the unit. I've actually done a comparison for our units in terms of usable square footages against luxury buildings in Simsbury, in Glastonbury, and a number of other suburban communities. And actually our usable square footage matches up to usually like the low to mid 700 square feet in a typical apartment building. Part of that is the amount of time we spend engineering the individual unit. We actually did a number of studies ergonomically and also on usage, from everything from how people use their apartments to how much linear space they use in a kitchen versus how much volume they use. We did that all for storage and everything else expected too. So it's a little bit, there's a little bit of a mismatch in terms of that for square footage purposes, but I definitely understand the question.
Well, I mean, you've done thousands of units. You explained at the beginning of your presentation. I mean, have you rented units of this size in the past, and people stay in them? They're not too cramped that they're coming in and leaving?
No, absolutely. It's a good question as well. The answer is yes, absolutely. And in fact, one of our first buildings that we did actually had smaller 2 bedrooms than this. And because of the fact that we focus on the usability of the units and the usable square footage, and things like that, actually people remark about how large they actually feel to them when they're in them. Part of that is also the 9-foot ceilings and the size of the windows, but it's also about the fact that we don't waste square footage like a typical unit does on strange little hallways or cutouts, or count the square footage of big hot water heater closets in our units. We only talk about where people can live. And also the way we've constructed them for purposes of the layout of the unit for the bathroom and the closet space, making that, sort of a suite unto itself, creates the opportunity for people to have like their own like dressing room. So if you are living with a significant other, you have your own dressing room space. You have your own space within that as well. So it's it becomes much more spacious than it sounds like when you're just talking about the way we quote square footage.
Did I hear you correctly early on? Are these apartments all handicap accessible?
Yeah, that's correct. They're designed to universal accessibility standards, and they meet the ANSI standards for handicap usability. I think there's a different code for accessibility in terms of versus, I guess, adaptability or something like that. And I'll let Attorney Gomes talk about the difference between those. But they're designed where they can be used by people of all varying disabilities. Our kitchen, for instance, we call it a yoga kitchen. The reason we call it that is because, yoga blocks look a lot like your iPhone. So if you're very flexible, if anybody on this board is like me, this would never apply to you. But you could put the block all the way flat like this. If you're a little bit inflexible, it can go like this, or up like this if you're very inflexible. Our kitchen is actually designed around that so that you can actually change the height of both the countertop level, but also of individual components within the kitchen. The example that we give is that I'm 6'2", my wife is 5'2". Counter height is technically the same for both of us. Obviously, counter height is not the same for both of us. So it depends on who's living in the unit. We do the same thing around like the dishwashers, for instance, in terms of how they can be situated. So the dishwashers can actually be low down so that they're basically on the floor like your regular dishwasher is, where you bend down to reload it. But that module can be raised so that if you're somebody with just a bad back, you don't have to bend down until your dishwasher can actually be raised up. Yeah, it's designed for universal accessibility is the standard, so that it meets the needs of people.
Do you
with
have
disabilities.
elevators?
Yes, all elevators, sir.
So to piggyback off that, I'm looking at some of the layouts. Does somebody walk through the interior of it? I mean, it doesn't look like there's even walls or doors. It's just a plain rectangle with areas sectioned off or whatever.
So these are there's a double door here and a double door here. And so this area can be completely opened, and you could have it almost like a loft, so to speak, the feeling of, incredible openness. One side could be closed, let's say a guest over and you didn't want them to, or the other side could be closed, or both, depending on how you're using it at any one time, so that, you have maximum flexibility. So if, if you were sleeping and, you're.
So essentially there's no walls, there's just doors that kind of.
There's doors here, and so the unit runs this way. That's right. Now in this unit, this is a 2-bedroom unit. This has, your living room into your kitchen, and then you have 2 bathrooms here and your 2 bedrooms. This also has the double doors here, but walls obviously in between the bedrooms and in between the kitchen. And then these are walls also.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
as well.
These remind me of like the apartments you see in like Japan or something. They're very.
I've not been to Japan, so I don't know, but they are, they're designed around a few different things. So, one of them is to optimize the accessibility aspects of them for purposes of being able to use them. The other is the efficiency of the square footage, and then the other aspects are around, creating sort of the optimal living environment. So it doesn't show it here, but each of these areas is a different module in the bathroom area. So you have your own commode room, you have a separate shower room, then you have closets and a laundry area in here. And so all of that is designed to sort of optimize the living environment for how a typical apartment user uses their apartments. I should say also, I didn't mention this before, but one of the ingenuities of this is that this building actually has no drywall or paint in it. So the interior of the units are walls. This is a steel building. We have, obviously incredibly high levels of insulation as well in order to meet the energy efficiency standards that we go to. But the walls themselves are an interior panelization system, so that if you ever had to get to your plumbing or your electric in order to replace or fix them, we can do that extraordinarily quickly. The material is also completely, basically indestructible. It's hypoallergenic, it's antimicrobial. And so it produces not only the safest and healthiest environment for people to live in, but it also produces a situation where we don't have, the ongoing issues associated with maintenance and problems. You have like slow leaks behind inaccessible walls. We've done away with all of that by trying to create something that's, a higher level of engineering and technology on the interior of the units as well.
So of the
Is that material?
20,000, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering what that material is. Is it a plastic?
It's a recycled paper mixed with a resin at very high temperatures, and it's what's called a phenolic wall panel.
Okay, and if it does burn, is it?
Does not burn. Has a higher rating than typical drywall.
So this is a non-combustible building.
It is.
And I noticed the recycling, the building is designed to be recycled. I'm curiosity on that one.
What it is that the materials that we use are all sustainable materials, and what it is what's called a cradle to cradle philosophy. So all of the materials that we use in the building are designed that they can be recycled and reutilized in like secondary lives. So the example is those interior panels that I was telling you about. You can use them on one side. If they were going to get destroyed, you can actually turn them over, use them on the other. And then if both sides were to get damaged, the factory will actually burn them to create fuel to produce new panels, not for yours, obviously, because that would take too much time. So it's part of what, a sustainability measure associated with all of that.
Yeah, on one of the pages to your presentation, it said when the building when vessel reaches its useful life, it can be easily dismantled and recycled. I guess that's.
Yeah. So, the idea there is that the materials that we use and the way that we construct everything, instead of producing things.
I guess what it comes down to is the building is not going to get completely replaced in 20 years with a new one. And I mean,
No, the steel structure obviously has an infinite lifespan on it. That's part of the reason we use steel. But a lot of the other components of it are designed, instead of getting painted over or patched up, we actually replace in order to keep it like new, and to keep it at a higher level of, just looking better over time.
Mr. Chairman, if I just can clarify ADA versus universal design. So universal design is what Mr. Levy was just talking about, the yoga block kitchen, varying abilities. There's a difference between that and what's required of an ADA compliant unit. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but we are providing the requisite number of ADA units. So all of the units are universal design, but we are also providing the requisite number of ADA units, which is required by the building code anyway.
Mr. Strollo?
Of your 20,000 units that you've been involved in, this is basically all the best practices wrapped into one. Now, of those, this style unit, how many have you already built?
So we have built one in New Jersey. We're in the process of building our second in New London right
How
now.
long has the one been in New Jersey?
A little over a year, probably.
Do you have pictures of it?
Yes.
Could we get some of those just to see? See how it's painted
It's not painted.
It's just the block white.
It is all white. That building is all white.
Whatever the color is.
It's all white.
Yeah. So
That
we can see
building's
like
white.
what it looks like in a finished environment.
Sure.
Not like you can't take it with the picture with the people in there and the shades and all that stuff. We want to see like a real picture would be kind of cool.
Maybe next time they'll bring the interior decorator with them.
Oh, no.
We start getting into interior design at a zoning hearing, Commissioner. That's
No,
It's
just,
really
I just want to
interesting.
see what
It'd
the
be
building
nice
looks
to
like
see.
finished.
Yeah, what it looks finished.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking. I just, I think
interesting.
it's, I mean, I think it's a great concept and I really learned a lot about it tonight that I didn't expect. And I mean,
Is this a proprietary building that Vessel designed and patented and that's
Yep.
so on and so forth? Okay.
yes. And Commissioner, you hit the nail on the head. It's best practices. They took everything they've
Yeah,
seen
that's what
and they
I'm-
want to
I'm-
change and they
I'm
put it
learning.
into one package. What Mr. Levy, I think, is doing, and we can continue questions in the interim, is pulling up some of the photos from the Trenton, New Jersey building. Hopefully, we'll be able to disconnect this and connect to that easily, but we can certainly continue with questions in the interim.
Mr. Natale?
This is more of a question for, I think, for our town attorney and staff. So with this application, there's three things that we're looking at. The first one is adding the HOD district, Housing Opportunity District, to our zoning regulations. Is that only for this property or is that across the town if we put this in the zoning regs?
So,
I think I read it's just for Realty Drive.
It's for Realty Drive.
Just for,
So Mr. Glidden is referring to me. I will answer if I may, Commissioner, and then certainly Mr. Attorney D'Onofrio, Mr. Glidden can pipe in. So we've drafted the regulation specifically to apply to this site. So the HOD will be in your zoning regulations. Technically, anyone can come in and seek to rezone their property to the HOD, but they'd have to meet all of the dimensional standards and requirements. And the way we've drafted the regulation is it really only applies to the site. Let's say hypothetically you have some developer that comes down the line or a property owner who says, you know, we really like the set aside development. We want to copy this elsewhere in town. They would, unless they manage to find the, you know, other parcel that meets the requirements along, including frontage along Realty Drive, they'd have to come before this commission again, amend the regulations again to change the HOD and then try and rezone their site. So we've drafted it specifically for just this site.
Why is that requested? Is it needed?
Why we've done the 3-part application.
HOD part of it, yes.
Right. So under 830G, as I mentioned, you don't need to comply with underlying zoning. So we could have just come in and just filed a site plan and said, we don't comply with the underlying requirements, and the commission can only look at public health and safety. In most instances, there are exceptions, of course. We find that following this 3-step process is better. Number one, it's better from a zoning enforcement process perspective. It gives the town, the applicant, and the commission a set of rules that the applicant needs to comply with, as opposed to kind of just looking just at public health and safety. We're giving the commission the dimensional requirements, the affordability requirements. So it gives usually all of the parties to an application more comfort going forward with the application. Also, it's a cleaner approval. At the end of the day, if we get this approved, we end up with a conforming use as opposed to a non-conforming use. That often comes into play, in particular when it comes to lending. For example, if you have a California lender who says, we need to see that your property is compliant with local zoning. Well, then it requires a letter explaining what 830G is to a California lender. It gets a little bit complicated. So overall, the 3-part application process is cleaner. The commission ends up with a regulation that they know what the parameters are, the town knows how to enforce it, and the applicant ends up with a conforming use on site.
It could probably be done right across the street from it too. Right across Realty Drive.
Yep, potentially. But then again, the commission would retain the discretion as to whether or not to rezone and site plan approval.
Yeah, but if they come in under 8-30G.
But we
kinda
can
stuck.
also pass this as is without that HOD.
Just the site plan. I mean, one of the things the commission can do, I believe that the HOD, if the commission wants to restrict the regulation even more, I'm looking at the text of the HOD. It's at tab 4. I believe that what we've done is we've said that the eligible location is a lot size between 1 and 3 acres. If the commission wanted to shrink that lot size to between 1 and 2 acres, that will provide the commission with additional security that this will really only apply to, the HOD will really only apply to our site.
Does it really matter? Because they come in under 8-30G anyways. What's the
Correct.
difference? I mean, I'm asking Mr. Onufrio.
I have the same concern with
It doesn't really matter.
What's your thoughts on it?
No, it doesn't really matter because ultimately the same statutory standard is going to apply, you know. As Attorney Gomes indicated, you know, there has to be sufficient evidence in the record to prove that any decision you make is necessary to protect a substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters that the commission can consider. And that those interests, those special public interests outweigh the need for affordable housing, and that those interests can't be protected by reasonable changes to the proposed development. So everything you're talking about so far can be dealt with in conditions of approval.
Is there any benefit to the town?
Benefit to the town in having the proposed text amendment revised so that it's more restrictive in terms of sites that it's potentially applicable to? Sure. Sure, I don't think it's a bad idea. You know, you talked about under 44B2A, changing that from 1 to 3 to 1 to 1.5.
I was going to ask.
But it doesn't deter any other applicant coming in later on a 830G.
No.
It's only for this one parcel. It's a text change for, in my mind, no apparent reason.
How is this not spot zoning again? I know you mentioned it very early on, but
Connecticut case law is pretty clear. It's not spot zoning. There's a specific test that, and I certainly defer to
well,
ask
whoever.
town attorney. Connecticut case law is clear. It's not spot zoning. Like I said, we've done this in probably over 50, if not 60 different municipalities throughout the town. And Commissioner, you asked about what the benefit is for the town. And I'm speaking hypothetically here. Again, it gives the town a set body, you know, the four corners of the regulation. It gives the town the parameters by which this application needs to comply. So this applicant needs, and, you know, let's say hypothetically down the road, this is not Vessel's plan. They plan on owning and operating this in perpetuity, but something happens where it's transferred to another owner. The town can go back and look at the HOD and say, nope, these are your parameters. This is what you need to comply with. And then you have something concrete that you can refer to for zoning enforcement purposes. You're not combing through from a zoning enforcement perspective, combing through an approval file from years ago. And again, it gives the applicant a conforming use. The policy in this state is to minimize non-conforming uses where possible. So we've given the commission an avenue by which to approve the application in compliance with 830G into a conforming use.
Can that be put on the deed instead of text change?
A conform.
I think what Attorney Gomes is saying about the regulations and in compliance with the regs, it really, as she noted, there in a lending process, what will happen is that, you know, Vessel will go to get a construction loan, a mortgage, et cetera, to buy for the property. And someone will come in and say, is this conforming to the existing zoning regulations? If they came in as just a 830G site plan, then no, technically it does not meet your regs because they don't have to meet it. The conservative approach is that exactly what they're doing, a text amendment, a zone change, and a site plan so that it lands, it is considered conforming. Then the twofold. One, it's consistent with state statute in the sense you're reducing or eliminating nonconformities, which is kind of like the principle of zoning. The other is the fact that you know there is an understanding of why it's conforming to your regs. You have standards that are there. Like I said, compared to the option of just an 830G site plan, then it becomes kind of an issue long term. Then you're dealing with something that doesn't meet regs, which, like as she's indicated, can provide financial implications to the property owner. But at the same time, from a zoning perspective, we also have to deal with that. Is it an expansion of a nonconformity? Is it an intensification, et cetera, which become larger zoning enforcement matters, which kind of Attorney Gomes was alluding to.
Yeah. And Commissioner, I will note, before we filed the application, I did consult with Mr. Glidden, who had consulted with Attorney D'Onofrio, and it was our preference that we moved forward with this three-part application, and town staff and town attorney did
That was going to
confirm.
be my next question.
Yes, so we asked, for the record.
Did I hear correctly? You have 50 approved applications? Is that what
I'm sorry?
you said you had 50? This three-part application you've done in 50 different places? Is
So
it-
the three-part application, oh, well, not myself, but my colleague, Attorney Tim Hollister, has done, I don't know if I can count how many 830G applications he's done.
in Connecticut.
There's more than 50 830Gs in Connecticut. This three-part application format, if you will, has been successfully implemented in 50, if not 60 municipalities throughout the
So
state.
the application process is what
Correct. There's been, I think, a lot more. There's been a
Sure.
lot more than
Yeah,
50
I would imagine. I thought maybe too, you said there was 50 pending apps for Vessel.
Oh,
with
no,
the
no, no,
sewer
no.
plant.
Apologies. No, just generally, this three-part application process has been implemented and approved in about 50 to 60, if not more, municipalities in
Okay.
Connecticut.
All right, thank you.
All right, I want to see if anyone from the public wants to speak on this. We can ask questions afterwards anyway, so they've been sitting here
Certainly.
long enough. But is there anyone from the public that would like to speak or ask questions on this application? No? Okay, Mr. Natale.
So we'd be looking to change that from 1 to 3 to 1 to 1.4? Since the property is 1.3 acres?
I think it makes sense.
Commissioner, did you say 1.4?
Yeah.
I would suggest that we give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. We've done the title search, we have the survey, we know it's about 1.3, but I'm just putting on my lawyer hat here. We don't want some
Okay.
property anomaly to come up sometime in the future and all of a sudden the applicant is held accountable for that. I'd suggest 1 to 2, 1.75, something just to give us a little bit of wiggle room.
But what is the advantage to us to doing that? Why would we rather have it 1 to 2 acres than 1 to 3 acres? Why is that beneficial?
Again, it was just to provide the commission with a little bit more comfort. In practice, it really doesn't do much because anyone can come forward with an 830G application, whether or not they comply with the HOD. So it really wouldn't make a difference one way or another. But if the commission wants the comfort of restricting what sites the HOD can land on, you can shrink the lot size.
Okay, it almost seems like you'd have less possible lots if you keep it bigger. I mean, it's probably easier to find a 1 to 2 acre lot than a 1 to 3 acre lot someplace, but it really doesn't matter anyway, so.
And I will note, just so the commission's aware, one of the things I've been seeing in these 830G applications in the last few years is we are actually seeing towns, which I did not see earlier on in my practice, we're seeing towns ask us to draft these regulations more broadly, not constrict the applicability of the zone, but more broadly because they know that there's this mandate to provide affordable housing. So they're trying to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will, and go through the public hearing process, vet the application, and draft it more broadly. So we've been seeing that recently in some municipalities, which is an interesting approach. But that's neither here nor there. I think that the way the regulation is drafted, town staff signed off on it. It meets our requirements and it complies with our site, but it's what the commission's comfort is.
I think I only have one more question. So it's a question I asked originally. Per statute, you're doing 30% affordable. That's it, bare minimum. Sounds like this is probably an expensive building to build. So, you need to make some money elsewhere. But, I think that part of the mission that I'm reading for Vessel's mission is to offer each person the equal opportunity for an extraordinary life. You mentioned firefighters, you mentioned police officers, you mentioned teachers. Was there ever any thought to increasing that from the 30% to make more units affordable for the group that you highlighted?
So, Commissioner, it's again, I think it's a very reasonable and a good question. The answer is that generally we don't put it in our plans for purposes of a submission because it doesn't it doesn't benefit the application obviously in any particular way and serves to have an impact on the building over time. Obviously, we don't know what happens with the operations of a building in terms of utility costs and insurance costs and tax costs over time. And so, we like to be good stewards for purposes of making sure the building is always, operating optimally. But certainly, the goal of the building is just that, is to be leasing to those groups of people. So just generally, we just don't generally deed restrict additional units beyond the ones that are, in the plan.
And do you have any idea what the rent would be for those called market rent units?
About 1625. It's a little under the 80% rents. So this is, you asked me what the building looked like in white. This is actually a slightly different design, same materials and everything else like that in white. This was what we call our beta building. It's also a patented design and was built volumetrically, but just to give you a sense of the white in situ with the panels. And then well, it is screened, but that design is different than the one we have here. You can see this, the design of this building is different. That's a very small building. It's all 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's all it's just a 6-unit building. This is the other design. This is just in gray. This is the color that we used for New London. It's a gray instead of a white. I don't know if you can tell that it's gray. Screens unfortunately don't do a great job of this, but I figured I'd show it to you anyway.
What's the ROI
Hey,
in this building?
I had.
I'm sorry?
What's your ROI on this building?
You're next.
Your return on investment. How long until it pays itself from all the rents?
Oh, I don't know is the answer. I haven't looked at the ROI.
Mr. Bolton.
This is for either Mike or the town attorney. If we can restrict it 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 5, if we don't meet the regulations of the state of Connecticut for affordable housing, someone's just going to come in on whatever piece they happen to select to come in with, and they are going to have the ability to do the same thing that Vessel has had. Is that correct? And we would still have the same issue of denying them because they're going to come under this state regulation. So for us to say it can only go on a 1 to 3 acre piece or a 1 to 2 acre piece, really in the big picture, it's not going to happen, because if someone wants to come in with a 5 acre piece, they're just going to rewrite the regulation to include a 5 acre piece, and we would be in the same position as a town to deny them, except for health and safety issues. Is that correct?
Well, right. I mean, if it's an application under 8-30G, then you've got the burden. And regardless of what the adopted text amendment from the Vessel application says, if you don't have the sufficient evidence to support the basis for finding a substantial public interest that outweighs the need for affordable housing and a lack of reasonable conditions, then you're going to be in the same position. You know, I mean, if you wanted to take advantage of the industrial use exception in 8-30G, then you'd have to amend your zoning regulations to prohibit residential uses altogether in an industrial zone. And then you'd be talking about a different situation.
Yes, but then we'd end up making how many positions, including farms, which we have the ability to have farm help live on the farms, which are basically in the industrial zone. So we're going to eliminate that, and all the people that are now living in an industrial zone are then going to become non-compliant. It's you know, it's something that we could certainly look at, but there is ramifications to what we're to a broad stroke elimination completely of you know, that type of housing.
No, I
in the industrial
understand.
zone.
What I was doing is saying that regardless of whether this particular text amendment, if adopted, says 1 to 1.5 acres, 1 to 2 acres, or as it's currently proposed, 1 to 3 acres. If another application comes in under 8-30G, it's the same burden on the commission and the same standard that you're going to have to apply. The truth of the matter is, you know, I'm town attorney in multiple towns. There's probably over the last 15 years, the preferred method is text amendment, zone change, site plan. That is the preferred method of doing it. It brings a lot more clarity to the process. It's not the only way to do it, but it's certainly, you know, preferable to the old way. But, you know, if you're more comfortable with a revision to the acreage to the proposed text amendment, I don't have any objection to it. I don't think it really does anything for you in the long run.
That was my question. Thank you.
You know, it's just, this is kind of a new thing for us in Cheshire. We all go up on one family on 1 acre, and now we're talking about 70 apartments on 1 acre. That's much different than anything we have in Cheshire right now. It's much different than any affordable housing project that we've looked at so far. It's substantially different. Partly what's going through my mind is how we're going to explain this to everybody else in Cheshire if in fact we approve this and now there's 70 units on 1 acre in Cheshire, and we're going to have to explain, why did you do that? How could you let that happen? I think the answer is we really don't have much choice. These are nice people and they put in a nice application and it's probably a really nice project, but you know, if they were not nice people, we'd have you in the same boat today with what we're facing, quite frankly, right?
I prefer to be nice where I can.
But I do have a question. I mean, and for Michael or for Mr. Levy, I mean, that does, again, for a person who lives in 1 acre zoning, 70 units on 1 acre sounds like an awful lot. I mean, that by itself seems problematic to me. Too many people living close together. It's loud, it's noisy, people are fighting with each other. I mean, what is it like living with 70 different, pardon me? 70 units on 1 acre. That's an awful lot of units.
Yeah,
I'd feel better if this was 40 units.
Yeah. So, you know, a few things that just to point out is that a couple of different things. One is you know, the size of the building is actually, you know, probably about the size of the building you're used to seeing. It's just that we've engineered the building, you know, so efficiently that we're able to fit, you know, more units on in the same building footprint. The other thing, though, more importantly, is normally when you talk about units in a building, you're talking about, you know, especially in suburban communities, a lot of 2 bedrooms, right? So what we're really talking about here is, you know, the equivalent of, you know, 35 2-bedroom units because they're all 1-bedroom units. So it's a little bit of a different approach. You know, one of the reasons we started doing it this way in terms of the 1-bedroom units is, as I met with, you know, these over 100 different communities, the thing that the communities kept asking me was, hey, nice idea. Could you have more 1-bedrooms or only 1-bedrooms instead of 2s, for 2 reasons. One is, obviously, 1-bedrooms, you're not getting kids in the units, you're not getting school-age children, you have no impact on the infrastructure of the existing town. Really important to a town because you want to increase your tax base, but not, you know, not increase the impact on your infrastructure. The other thing is that the people that they needed to house were really 1-bedroom renters, right? You get up to 2, 3 bedrooms, you know, the rent gets very high. At that point, people, you know, are looking at, well, maybe I should go and try to, you know, basically put a down payment on a house. I mean, raising interest rates doesn't help in that respect, but that was the thought process for most of the communities we met with. And so we try to tailor it that way. But I'd say the big difference being that, you know, these are all, you know, very efficient 1-bedroom designs as opposed to, you know, larger 2 or even 3-bedroom designs that you might see in a different apartment building.
In your experience with the 20,000 units, have you had other buildings where you had 70 units on an acre size of property?
Yeah, no, we've had, yes, more density than that in some cases. You know, the thing that we think about in terms of how do you craft the best, you know, I'm going to call it a community within a community, which is, you know, the building community, is, you know, how do you find the right tenants to live in the building? You know, part of that is, you know, how you go about, you know, leasing the building. But, you know, the other part of it is, you know, do you actually get to know your tenants beforehand? So most apartment complexes that get applied for in, you know, suburban or urban communities, you know, are actually much higher levels of numbers of units. You know, developers typically target today 150 units and up. What we target is, you know, even though it seems like a large building, I know, smaller buildings. One of the reasons we do that is so that we can actually meet every single tenant before they come in. So we do, as opposed to the standard way of approaching tenancy, which is send us your application, we screen your building for purposes of, we screen you for purposes of your credit score and stuff like that. We do all of that, but we also meet with every tenant before we bring them into the building, you know, with the whole purpose of creating, you know, a nice community within the community.
Thank you.
Mr. Selma.
Yeah, with the density of the building is, to me, that in itself is a public health and safety issue. Is there occupancy restrictions too on this? I mean, you get, okay, 1 bedroom, you have maybe 1 couple, 1 person. I mean, is there restrictions on how number of people who could occupy a unit?
From an occupancy perspective, I'd refer that to Mr. Glidden, because every town does have occupancy requirements associated with how many people can live in a unit, and it's it's different in every community, but certainly we're required to adhere to that. What we generally find is that it's, normally, one at most two people, most people don't want to live in a one-bedroom unit beyond that.
So there are occupancy standards that are generally set, I believe, by the health code. So we have to meet the health code anyway, and we would never go, that sets the floor. I don't know what those numbers exactly are, but that does set the floor for occupancy standards.
And
Excuse me.
Chesbrockett's across the street, so you'd have to really meet the health code.
Exactly.
Okay. We had no public. Did you said you had some closing comments? Is that?
Yep, I'll just wrap up quickly. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you very much for your attention to detail throughout the evening and your patience as we went through a lengthy presentation. I'll just say a couple of things. I think that this application checks a number of boxes. I know it's a new proposal. I know that 830G is new to Cheshire. I know that Cheshire is more used to the single family home on a 1 acre, which frankly is much of Connecticut, which is why there is this lack of affordable housing. So you're taking a vacant site in a fairly developed area, and you're inserting a very sustainable, energy efficient building that's going to provide Cheshire residents. These are your police officers, your teachers, your firefighters, your college students returning home to work in town, and they're getting the affordable housing that that the town needs. There are no health and safety issues. Again, I'll just clarify for the record that we vetted, the town staff went through the application, provided us comments. We accepted all of the suggested comments from town staff. We've received sign off from the planner, from the town engineer, from the fire marshal, and I believe the fire department. And everyone has agreed there's no public health and safety issues. And I think that the commission can see we've really vetted the application to show that there's no public health and safety issues either. And then, as I did mention earlier, the town's affordable housing plan and Cheshire's POCD does call for affordable housing. The POCD in particular notes that the town needs to increase opportunities for affordable housing, promote variety of housing types. That's where you get the multifamily, and enhance housing mobility and choice across income levels. This application checks all those boxes. Frankly, with all due respect, we'd ask the commission to approve the application. There's no logical or legal basis to deny. And we, again, thank the commission for its time. If you have any other questions, we're all on deck here.
Mr. Burkow.
One last question for me. To help Cheshire, is when you're selecting who's going to move into these apartments, who's going to get the lease or rent, do you pick people from Cheshire first that are already working here and need a place? Maybe not for the affordable, because I know that has to fit the state guidelines, but for the moderate.
So like a residency requirement, I don't think. Yeah.
But so with what we're happy to do and, work with folks in town on is to do like pre-leasing to people who are working and living in Cheshire. There's out within the confines of what's acceptable under the fair housing laws and everything else like that. But certainly we're always excited to, welcome people who, are already in the community and want to be living here, and, would love to do that. We're doing that in other ways too.
That'd be great. And that's something you can put in the paper saying that this is coming, looking for those people in town that want to stay in town.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're even happy to, I've, in other communities I've met with, the different people from the school boards and stuff like that to get the word out about it and do that. And we're certainly happy to do that too.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I'll just add one more thing. Our affordability plan, which again is that plan that will set forth the rules and regulations for administering, it specifically requires that we advertise the leasing opportunities in a newspaper of general circulation in Cheshire. So Cheshire will hear about it first. And that's in our plan at tab 6.
Okay. Anyone else? Last chance.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just
Mr. Glenn.
to clarify, while the public hearing is still open, I just wanted to go over potentially the 5 conditions of approval that were discussed this evening, just to make sure the applicant agrees to this on the record. One was they presented a plan to move the building 3 foot closer to Route 10 / the western property line to increase the parking on site by 5 spaces. Two, applicant is to explore no parking signs along Realty Drive with the Realty Drive Association. Three, snow to be hauled off-site from snow removal areas. Four, lease documents are to put a condition that 1 car per 1-bedroom unit and 2 car per 2-bedroom units. Five, the building exterior color will be gray with a wood tone panels, or we could put something that you authorize staff to work with them on a color scheme. And then one was from the memorandum. This is from the applicant, but still, I'd like it just go on the record. Proposed condition concerning if it would be town staff, so that would be, or I would say as far as either RWA or town staff determines that the water line needs to be looped. That said connection shall be constructed internal to the site.
If I can just ask through you, Mr. Chairman, a couple of questions to Mr. Glidden.
Sure.
So the reference to moving the building 3 feet, I just double checked, Mr. Glidden, with our engineer. It might be like 3.1 feet or something along those lines.
I wanted to clarify.
So
this.
I would suggest that you say in accordance with the alternative site, instead of saying you could say approximately 3 feet in accordance with the alternative plan provided.
With the revision date of April 24th, 2023.
Yes.
Okay.
I would suggest that just because it may be 3.1 or 3.2. I don't want to mislead the commission when it comes to that.
We'll just go by in this revision date.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that was the 4/24 revision date, right?
Can you recite 4 again, please?
Which one?
4, the lease document.
Lease documents to be, to include that, or to, lease document to put a condition, sorry, I'm struggling to read my own handwriting. 1 car per 1-bedroom unit, 2 car per 2-bedroom units.
A couple
Is there
more
any more?
questions, if
Sure.
I may. Yes,
Yeah.
I just want to confirm because we are clarifying this on the record. So what I would suggest, again, we are happy to include that lease provision, the 1 car per 1-bedroom units or the 2 cars per 2-bedroom units. What Mr. Levy just brought to my attention is if someone moves into, for example, a 2-bedroom unit and it's one person with only 1 car, we'd ask for some flexibility that we're allowed to provide that additional space to another unit if need be. So I think the general idea, and I can work with Mr. Glidden after the fact to craft that language, but just a little bit of flexibility that if a unit does not elect to use the 2 spaces, for example, we could give it to another unit.
Sure, Mr. Bowman.
I'm sorry?
You've already stated that there be no assigned parking. So why would there be a need to assign a parking to someone else?
It wouldn't be
There-
apologies, I didn't mean to interrupt. It finding a designated parking space, it would be limiting the number of cars that would be allowed per lease, if you will. So it's not that,
It's clarifying the allocation of parking.
correct. It's not a specific spot. It's just the allocation of parking.
So under that, if that 2-unit transfers again, I'm sorry, the 2-bedroom transfers again, and the new tenant then has 2 cars, what do you do with that one that you allowed to have an additional car?
Yeah, so we wouldn't be able to, Mr. Lee made a good point. We wouldn't be able to change that allocation unless we had more room. So we would just have to keep that lease provision. For example, if the 2-bedroom unit only needs 1 car, we put in the lease, it's 1 car, it will have to stay at 1 car until another spot frees up. Okay, so if that's acceptable. And then the only other question I had, I heard about the snow offsite. We agreed to that if it cannot be stored on site on the designated snow storage areas. The gray with the wood panels in accordance with administrative approval. And then through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Glidden, if you could read the no parking condition of approval again.
Yeah, well, this is just clarifying. I think I would like to formalize these maybe.
We can work together with the
close
commission's
hearing,
approval.
But I just want the agreement from the applicant.
Understood.
You're comfortable. So applicants explore installation of no parking signs along Realty Drive with Realty Drive Association.
Correct. We will certainly explore that. We just can't commit to it because we don't know what the association has in its documents. But
Right.
yes, we agree to explore that.
Okay.
So if you have a 2-bedroom unit that says they're only going to have 1 car, you're going to assign it to another, I guess, give 2 cars to a 1-bedroom unit, right? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but then if that person moves out of the 2-bedroom, whoever moves in the 2-bedroom is only allowed to have 1 car until something frees up.
it would have to balance out essentially like that. It just maintains the allocation of parking so that you're ensuring that you don't have 3 or 4 cars, for example, for a unit, which is
I think that would
unlikely
hurt
to happen.
you, but that's your fault. I mean, and it doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense
that
to me.
no sen- that
It makes no sense,
Whatsoever.
but that's,
Whatsoever.
okay, well,
Yes,
whatever.
correct. It's not, I don't think it's a practice of what
It's not
happens
smart.
commonly. It's just the, what the applicant has requested for some flexibility on parking.
Yeah, it could also be just as an example, if somebody were to move into one of the units who was handicapped, they don't have a car. So, but somebody else, got married and their significant other moved in, it just gives you the.
It's your problem, not mine. So I'm not gonna worry about it, but it just didn't make sense to me. Anyone else have anything else to bring? No? Okay, I'm gonna close.
I mean, are you gonna close the hearing? Because, I mean, we're not gonna vote on this tonight, are we?
We could if we wanted to. It's,
We usually have had a policy we just got this tonight. Yes. We had some of the materials before. I think we should go back and think about it. I mean, I don't think there's much choice, right?
That's what I'm
Said
thinking.
before. But having said that, I mean, it seems to me that we don't have to make a decision until May 29th, I think is the decision date. Why we wouldn't take a week, one meeting, 2 weeks, read over our materials a little further. We had questions asked. If you think it's a bad idea, fine, right? It seems to me I would keep the hearing on.
You want to keep the hearing open too?
I agree. I think we should keep it open.
I mean, just in case somebody that's watching at home wants to come in and ask a question that we didn't.
This is too big of a project to just approve and
And then that would get, have all these conditions formalized, take a look at them and talk about them. I don't think it's gonna make any difference in what we do, but I think it looks better.
well, if everybody on the commission, that's what they feel, then I have no problem with it. Okay. It's all right to leave it open, so we're gonna leave the public hearing open.
I mean, obviously the applicant would prefer to close and vote tonight, but if the commission is inclined to defer its vote, we'd ask that we keep the public hearing open because sometimes we see the commission come up with a question at the next meeting and then we can't answer
That's why
it.
the public hearing will be held open, yeah.
Yep.
So could we do the same practice? If anyone has have any comments, questions that come up before our next meeting, if you can email them to me,
Yeah.
and then I'll send them to the applicant and try to get something ready, queued up for the next meeting.
And it might determine who has to be here and who doesn't have to be here.
Yeah.
Also for,
That would be helpful.
In
We
fairness to the
appreciate that.
yeah.
And that way we can prepare and be more productive at the next hearing, just give the commission the additional information it needs.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Move Mr. Bowman, seconded by Mr. Bricato. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for April 24th, 2023. Can I get a motion to accept the public hearing and regular meeting from April 10th, 2023? Moved by Mr. Bricato, seconded by Mr. Strollo.
First point of order. We do have one commissioner who has left, so the roll call should be adjusted to that, please.
We still have 9 up here, but yeah. So Mr. Dawson has left. I don't know what time he left, but I'm sure you could see
9:57.
9:57.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? Sensing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. All right, do we have motions for 242 LLC?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First, you have a motion to approve application for a zone change to approve an approval of Special Development District, SDD, approval of Special Development Design Project on behalf of Apex Realty, 242 LLC.
Mr. Chairman, I think this will end the meeting for me. So I am going to recuse myself from 1, 2, and 3 because of a relationship. And I'm going to recuse myself for 4 and 5 because Town Chairman Slocum spoke to me while the public hearing was open for, about the application for the zone text change for the ice cream parlor.
Okay.
I think everything
Anything
else
else
gonna be
is
put
all
off.
new or put off? Yeah, so. Okay. What's that? Yeah, Anita, we're gonna need you up here. So why don't you start over from the top, please?
Okay. Pretend like you didn't hear me before. Motion to approve application for zone change to and approval as a special development district, SDD, and approval of a special design project on behalf of Apex Realty 242 LLC owner applicant. Applicant is requesting zone change from C1 to SDD and approval of special design project for the property located at 242 South Main Street, Assessors Map 64, Lot 254. Approvals based on plans titled 242 South Main Street Special Design Project prepared by SLR with a revision date of March, it should actually be, I'm sorry, revision date of April 4th, 2023. The commission finds that the proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the 2016 Plan of Conservation Development. And the commission finds that pursuant to section 45.2 of the zoning regulations, that the proposed development is coordinated with the adjacent special development district approval and therefore qualifies for the locational standards contained within the zoning regulations. The effective date for the change is May 5th, 2023.
Anyone? Anyone? Move Mr. Bricado, seconded by anyone? Ms. Downs. Thank you, Ms. Downs. Discussion on this motion. Mr. Bricado.
I just want to say, I know in our POCD, we looked for having this kind of housing put in after I went back and read. So I will be voting for it. I wish the applicant came and put some, commercial on the bottom, like I said before, but I will be voting for this. It's something we were looking for. We'll go back through and see if where we are on that and how much housing we're putting in, and it looks nice. It fits right in. I know the attorney was saying how it fit into that zone with the medical building. Physically, it does. It looks really good. So there we go. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Tesco.
It's very painful to do this, but I'm going to vote no on this. I don't think it's consistent with section 45.1.4, which talks about encouraging primarily commercial growth. This applicant's a fine applicant. They've always been very cooperative, trying to work with the commission. And it's not anything I enjoy, but I concluded after a lot of thought that I would vote no, and I'm going to vote no on this.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Downs.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'll also be voting no.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Mr.
go-
Natale?
Yep. So I've struggled with this one a little bit too, because I went back and looked at the Plan of Conservation and Development. I went back and looked at the minutes. I actually went back and watched the recordings also. If the council for the applicant talked about it being complementary, coordinated, and accessory to Hartford Healthcare while being its own special development district. Also talked about being supplemental to commercial, and I know we had some talk back and forth about what supplemental meant, whether it was the primary use for the commercial, or was it truly supplemental? I agree with Mr. Tedesco as far as the way he's going to vote on that. That's my thoughts on it, sir.
Any other discussion? Oh, okay. So I tend to lean with Mr. Bricado. We asked for this. We got a lot of it. I think we might have written it the wrong way. We'd like to have more of a mix with the commercial and the residential. But what we asked for in our plan of conservation and development and our regulations is what's in front of us, and I will be supporting the motion. So with that, why don't we do hands on this one? All those in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all those opposed. 1, 2, 3. Motion carries 6-3. Can we move on to number 2? Earth removal, refilling?
Motion to approve application for earth removal, filling, or regrading permit on behalf of Apex Realty 242 LLC. Applicant owner, applicant is requesting a permit to waiver request 2532, waiver requirements subsection 9 under section 25.5 for the property located at 242 South Main Street, Assessors Map 64, Lot 2. Approval for the earth removal, filling, regrading activities are based on plans titled 242 South Main Street Special Design Project prepared by SLR with a revision date of April 4th, 2023. Further, the commission finds that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with section 25 of the zoning regulations.
Move, Mr. Mercado. Seconded by Mr. Natale. Any discussion on this motion? Gonna abstain? Okay. Any other discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? 2 opposed and Mr. Tedesco abstaining. So the motion carries 6-1. Number 3, please.
Motion to approve application for a special permit on behalf of Apex Realty 242 LLC, owner applicant. Applicant's requesting special permit pursuant to section 45, Special Development District SDD for a special design project, mixture of retail and residential for the property located at 242 South Main Street, Assessors Map 64, Lot 2. Approvals based on plans titled 242 South Main Street Special Design Project prepared by SLR with a revision date of April 4th, 2023. The commission finds that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with section 45 of the zoning regulations. The approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, approval is for work at 242 South Main Street. Any work associated with this project and that involves demolition, construction, restoration, et cetera, on abutting properties requires approval from abutting property owner. It is responsibility applicant to secure approval from abutting property owner to perform this work. 2, the southern driveway is now designed as actually, it's been eliminated. Sorry, this was a condition that was lifted from the town engineer's staff report. I apologize. They revised the plans. Stop signs and stop bars shall be provided at all exits. 4, building design is based on plans titled South Main Street prepared by Sullivan Architectural Group with a revision date of February 17th, 2023. 5, the materials for the exterior building are the following. A, vinyl siding, horizontal and vertical board and batten. B, Casson and Keller vinyl windows with 2/2 grid patterns. And C, Trek decking for all porches with a color guard vinyl rail system in white. All pressure treated framing will be wrapped in white PVC.
Move by Mr. Mercado, second by Mr. Natale. Discussion on this motion. Okay, sensing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? 2, and Mr. Tedesco abstaining. So the motion carries 6-1. All right, moving on. How does everyone feel about the zone text change for the ice cream shop? Ready? Can we hear the motion, please?
Motion to approve petition for a zone text change on behalf of Lisa Calhoun petitioner. Applicant is requesting an amendment to section 3041 of the Cheshire zoning regulations to add ice cream parlors as specially permitted use in R20A zoning district. Further, the commission finds that the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals and objectives of the 2016 Plan of Conservation Development. The effective date for the change is May 5th, 2023.
Anyone? You moving it, Mr. Strollo?
Yes, but I talked, I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Strollo, second by Mr. Mercado. Discussion.
The restriction on the 9-month. Did we talk about that or no?
This is for the
zone text
for the
change.
Zone text change. That would be everything. Yeah.
The zone text change would have to be a restriction on the 9-month. Wouldn't it be a condition?
I don't think so. I don't know how we all agree or not agree on that, if that's a different.
It'd be a seasonal business. That's what I
The
discussed.
season's gonna take care of itself with the ice cream.
I understand that, but like I said, it just the definition of a seasonal business. That's what it was.
It was
'Cause you're
previously.
putting in a zone, you're putting in an R20A zone, and you're going right down Route 10 with it. And that, I'm just saying is that like at least if you restrict it to 9 months season, then it's not gonna turn into a coffee shop / hamburger joint /
Well,
then
that's
you have a
impossible.
restaurant.
That's impossible. That can't happen.
I know it can happen, but it will happen. That's what I'm trying to say. If it's restricted to 9 months, it automatically says, okay, we have a season to sell ice cream, and it's over.
It's still special permit to do anything in a 20A though.
And this is for an ice cream parlor. This is not for a restaurant or a
I
coffee
understand
shop.
that, but an ice cream
So-
parlor is a seasonal business. I mean, I don't.
I'm not saying I disagree with your 9 months. I'm saying I disagree with it stops hamburger shops or restaurants or coffee shops. I think they
well,
can't
I
even
think-
come in under this regulation. This is just for ice cream shops, strictly
If you
for
give them a
ice cream
year,
shops.
they have a year to sell. That's what I'm trying to say. Is it then
Like
they're
I
not-
said, I'm not against your 9-month open policy, but when you said it eliminates the restaurants coming in,
Well,
doesn't.
it eliminates somebody pushing the envelope. That's what I'm trying to say. That that they add something in to stay open for the other 3 months when it's slow. I mean, it's I have a seasonal business. I mean, like for 3 months, I'm just tumbleweeds. I get it, but maybe one day I'll take 3 months off.
But we're not restricting that.
No, what I'm just saying is that like I'm in an industrial zone. This is a residential zone. It's a restriction on the business. If we're gonna have some type of business in it, it should be some kind of restriction. That's all I'm stressing.
Well, so the applicant, when she submitted this and in her testimony here, what did she say? She agreed to it.
She agreed to it.
Yeah.
so if you want to put it in, put it in.
So no, my point there is if the applicant is going for the zone text change and the applicant agreed to it, should we be looking at it more broadly?
You want to look more, what do you mean more broadly? You mean,
If the applicant said, yeah, she's coming in for the zone text change, correct?
Yeah.
So should we as a body look to say, well, should it be the 9 months that she agreed to, or should we go further? Or should we go less? Or should we just go with what she agreed to?
I would say go with what she agreed to, because otherwise you're running afoul of a due process claim because she said yes to 9.
She said, she said
And you go
let's-
down to
let's do
6, that's not what was
Yeah.
agreed to. And it creates kind of undue hardship on someone who wants to operate the business. And you have one or two avenues. Either you put it in the text amendment, and that addresses, sort of nuisance issues, kind of what Commissioner Strollo is saying,
Yeah,
or
but-
you attach it to the special permit.
And I'm not suggesting going down to 6, by the way. But I'm kind of torn on it because I'm not in favor of restricting a business. But again, going.
But
by
it's a
the-
seasonal business.
But again, going by the letter of it, she was the applicant. She's the one that agreed to the 9 months. I don't know that we should be looking at 12 because that's the applicant and that's what she came in for.
You could always give it back, but you can't take it back. If you put 9 months in there and it does become a burden on that business, you can always come back.
Then they
and
go for
amend it.
zone text change.
Right.
Yeah, then we take it out. But I think you're putting in an R20A zone, and I think that it's something that, we heard testimony about people complaining about that they really want an ice cream shop, year round, basically. So it shows a little bit of
Compassion.
So
Restriction.
can we all get together? Do
Yeah,
we want to have the
3 months.
9-month restriction on there, or is it something that should be voted on to add to the motion? Anyone to my right, how do you guys feel about the 9-month restriction? To be open 9 months?
I'm not sure about that because I'm planning to vote no for the whole
Well, it
thing.
still wouldn't matter then.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
For
whichever
me,
way
ice
you're going to
cream
vote.
is 12 months out of the year, personally. It's a lifestyle. It's every day of the week, so.
Well, it's been mentioned that
But growing up in town, Dairy Queen shut down for the season or other, that's what used to happen. I mean, that's.
I understand your point. I don't see it, actually. I mean, I know Claude's closes and stuff, but
Yeah, that's.
I actually am interrupting here for a question. If we vote yes for this, then Rikisa Hair Salon could turn into an ice cream shop. So it's that, but I'm changing the subject again, but I'm going to be voting no on it, the whole thing. So don't ask me about the 9 months.
I'm going to be voting no also, but it seems to me that the lady originally said that she was only going to be open 10 months a year. So why not let her have, if you're going to vote in.
So go to 10
what I'm
months
saying,
instead of 9 months if you're going
let her
to, I
have a
mean,
business plan.
we can add it, we can not add it.
I mean, she said, okay, that's all I'm saying. She said it.
And then I'll just vote against it either way.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're voting against it,
Right.
Sean, to me, just
I'll make a motion to motion to do 9 months and we'll vote on that. Okay? I'll make a motion.
You're making a motion to add
the restriction
of
of
only
the-
being open 9 months of the year.
Yes.
Are you going to restrict the actual months that they're open or?
No, just
Okay,
9 months.
9 months
Per
out of the
calendar
year.
year.
Yeah, per calendar year.
Per calendar year. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Natale. Discussion on the change. Discussion by Mr. Strobel.
I think it makes sense because that's what the applicant represented. She was the one coming in for the zone text change.
Okay.
I agree.
Ms. Blake.
But wasn't that 9 months added in because she saw the pressure from the public? And so she was trying to find a compromise and a middle ground. I'm somebody who believes that the consumer is going to determine whether the business stays open or not. If she's not getting the foot traffic, if people aren't coming, then she's got a choice to make. And I would imagine the public's concern about having this shop in here is regardless of whether it's 9 months or 12 months.
But the zone text changes for the whole Route 10. Okay. So what I'm saying is, let's say R20A zone by the police department, right? It's R20A zone right by the police department. And I open up an ice cream store. You know what I mean? I don't have the lot to take in the traffic in the wintertime. That's all I'm trying to say is that, so it's a restriction just for usually the winter months. I doubt somebody's going to close their ice cream store down in July, but it's going to be, and it's a seasonal business. That's all. It's not specific to the one property. It's a zone text change for all of Route 10. So if somebody opens it, I get, by the daycare that we just approved or by the police department, I mean, you're not selling donuts, you're selling ice cream, but I'm just saying is that it's a different, it's not just for one specific property, it's for whole. That's why I'm saying, because it could be effective to another property owner that's beside them. That's why I'm saying.
I think it's overregulation. I don't think it is seasonal. It just happens to be seasonal because it's cold and maybe less people get ice cream. But my family's constantly going to Dairy Queen because there's not better ice cream that's open to get during the cold seasons, right? So I'm stuck with something out of a carton instead of nice made ice cream.
But like I said, it's not in the commercial zone. I mean, if it was in the C1 zone or C3 zone, then you have it year round and you have a drive-through. I mean, those are other things. Like if it was a drive-through, there's other things that an ice cream store could have. If you go to Dairy Queen in Southington, I mean, you think they're going to be on $100 bills because their it's going out the door. So it's kind of that's what I'm trying to say is that it's a restricted area, restricted zone. It should be a restricted use. That's all my thing is.
Okay.
Can I just add
Sure.
one other non-essential thing? It is painful for me to vote no on this because I absolutely love ice cream and I live on Patton Drive and I was very excited initially about the thought of I'll walk over and get ice cream, but it's just too much traffic and I just have to vote no. So I'm sorry.
Okay, well, in front of us though is not quite, yeah, this, we're doing the motion is in front of us is for the 9 months. We have to, yeah, the motion to add to the motion, amend the motion is in front of us. So I guess I'll call for a vote on amending the regulation to restrict the business to 9 months of the year. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. 3, all those opposed. Motion, 1. Motion, you voted no or you vote? Okay. Okay, so motion fails 3-5-1. Is that correct? Yeah, 3-5-1. Okay, back to the original motion, which is to allow ice cream shops and only ice cream shops in the R20A zone. Any discussion on this motion? Mr. Selmont.
I'll have more discussion about the next one, but R20A, the whole purpose of it is it becomes a mixed use inherently because you're on a main road. And this is the gray area between commercial and residential. And I know we just had a previous application that kind of did the same thing as far as blurring the lines. The bottom line is there's other occupancies that could be there, non-office occupancies that would generate similar traffic and issues and everything else. So I'll be voting in favor of the zone text amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Tedesco.
Yeah, I'm not ready to amend the R20A rules for a food vending establishment. I frankly, after hearing all the things you can do in an R20, I'd almost like to take some of them away, like the exercise club and some other one. Maybe we should talk about that. But I don't. After a lot of thought, and this is a very nice lady, and it's difficult to say no to such a nice person who wants to do something. But I don't think it's the right thing for the town, so I'm going to vote no.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Natale.
Mr. Didisco, I agree with him. I think that is a great spot for an ice cream shop, by the way. But since we're talking about a zone text change that affects other properties under 10 in the R20A, I'm not in favor of that. I'm not that comfortable with it. We're going to be looking at some other things upcoming too. And I would support the ice cream shop, but not changing the zone.
Any other discussion? All right, this one is tough. It's Route 10. The thing that gets me, and I think Mr. Selmont went to it, is we do allow a lot of different things in the R20A zone, which generates, I think, pretty much the same traffic, even possibly, as Mr. Tedesco said, even more. So the fact that this is just an ice cream shop and only for ice cream shops, I think that we've talked about, not for restaurants, it's not for coffee shops. We kind of got rid of the suggestion for that was going to be there. I think I would be able to support this. So all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And those opposed, 1, 2, 3. The motion carries 6-3. Number 5, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a motion for the special permit because the approved first. So you'd be able to approve the special permit at your next meeting
Okay.
by law.
Yep.
We have to wait.
Gotcha. 8 and 6, 7, 8 are held open.
Yep.
9 is for 5-8. That's our cannabis. 10, 522, 11, 522. And then new business. Creme Holdings.
The Creme Holdings is a conversion of existing It's a property, it's on Maple Avenue that's zoned R20A. It's a single-family home. They're looking to convert it into an office for a property maintenance company. And ice cream. No, stop. We're not going to go on that road. It's too late to joke like that. And the last one is a site plan on West Main Street. Both submitted, this one was submitted just in time before the moratorium. It's Brian's Guitars. They're looking to add a building behind their existing building and redo the parking lot.
All right, cool. And public hearing for 522.
No, another one.
All right, anything else to come before the commission tonight? Okay. So can I get a motion to adjourn the regular meeting? Motion by Mercado, second by Mr. Natale. All those in favor? Aye.